Hey, good morning. I would say
Afternoon.
It's afternoon.
Sunday morning, but it's not B Cube Sunday morning. We are celebrating Coronation Day, and I'd like to say hello to my fellow subjects. Yesterday, I could have said hello to my fellow citizens, but today, you're subjects. As we are doing today, we're reading from Alternative Liberties. And the people we have here today all are wearing name tags, but Phil, you're first on my list. Phyllis, you're one of the editors. Say hello and
good afternoon or evening. Some of you know me from previous podcasts. For those of you who are new to B Cubed, I write science fiction fantasy and cozy mysteries, and I'm also on the Book View Cafe, and I have been editing with Bob for many years.
Cool. Well, thank you, Phil. If it hadn't been for you, we wouldn't be here today. Cliff, you want to say a quick word?
A quick word. Good night, Gracie. Okay. Hi.
Well, thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Cliff Winnig. I'm the third Sunday host of B Cube Sunday Morning. I'm also the host of SF and SF, Science Fiction in San Francisco, which is not just in person, but the audio is podcasted. So you can listen to that wherever podcasts are found. I'm a writer. I have a number of stories published in fantasy and science fiction and horror, and including one piece in Southern Truths by BQ Press. And this is my debut as an editor. I co-edited Alternative Liberties.
And I will say, that man can sniff out a comma splice underneath a 15-pile ton of dead herring.
Sadly, that is not normally a job skill, but in this case, it worked out.
Well, Jim, for those that don't know you, say hello.
Hi to people who don't know me. I don't know, what do you want, an introduction? The usual. I'm a writer, sometimes of science fiction, mostly of other things. I'm a photographer. I show up here, the lab, along with my partner in crime, David Gerald, on the last month. And yeah, that's me. Today I'm mostly making depressed, smart-ass comments on social media. That's how it is. I'm a little beat up. I had major surgery earlier this month, and I'm still recovering from it. I'm here. Let's do it.
Hey, it's always a pleasure to have you around, Jim. I mean, if it wasn't for you,
I worry about you, Bob. I mean, anybody that finds my company a pleasure, other than my wife, who I'm not sure does find my company a pleasure, I worry about your mental health. I do.
Hey, all I know is, Jim, if it wasn't for you, I'd be the smartest Navy guy on the screen right now.
Oh, that's a low bar, buddy. That's a low bar.
Now, Brenda Cooper.
Yes,
You're
sir.
going to be doing a reading later. You want to say a quick moment about yourself now?
I think I'll start by saying a quick word or two about y'all who are on the screen. I want to say that this came up right after the election results came in, and that's a very short time between then and now to put together a book. And a fabulous job by all. I'm really pleased to be invited to come and read. I was pleased to be invited to submit. I'm looking forward to, hearing from more people about it. But I really think you guys all deserve, and including Karen Anderson, who I don't see up here, but all of you deserve, a hand for this effort and this work, because it is in my mind, a real act of love for the citizens of the United States. And we hope certainly, Bob, that we all remain that.
It is. I have to say, it was a relatively tight schedule, but we had a very good team to do it. And so, if since we're doing a reading, by the way, I'm going to get it so I think you guys can all see the comment. The as we're going in here. Oh, hey, I see Jeff's out there. Now, the person who got together and turn your mic up a little bit if you could, Jim.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It might be the volume of my monitor. It's always trying to be too low.
Yeah,
But
usually I'm the loudest guy in the room. That's usually the problem. People usually tell me turn things down.
Well, that's without the electronics. Cliff, why don't you? Cliff wrote our foreword for us, and I thought that it'd be very appropriate to have the foreword read first.
That is normally the state of affairs. I mean, we could save it for last. We could be iconoclastic here at B Cubed, trendsetters for the future.
Yeah.
All right. Before I read the foreword, four of the foreword, I do want to mention that in addition to Bob, Phil, and me, the other editors of the book are Deborah Godfrey, Karen G. Anderson, and Lou Berger. So there were 6 of us working in parallel, which is how we did it. It was kind of an amazing experience. I'm sure that if I ever edit or co-edit another anthology, the pace will feel glacial by comparison. Anyway, a brief foreword. This is the foreword from the book. We always remember the moment we learned of a great tragedy. For people of certain ages, to recall the JFK assassination, the explosion of the Space Shuttle Challenger, or 9/11 is to recall where you were when you heard the news. When Trump won a second term, I was with friends and colleagues on the B Cubed podcast, doing special election night coverage. The Democrats' defeat rolled over us like a train wreck in slow motion, and I rolled through all the stages of grief. But from the ashes of that night rose the phoenix of this anthology, a counter to Trump's promise of retribution and revenge, a light against the rising dark. The brave writers herein clearly love the United States of America. Maybe not the America that was, certainly not the America that is about to be, but the promise of America. Give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, and we'll give them liberty and justice for all. Science fiction has satirized the present, imagined dystopian futures, and offered visions of decency that could be. In this volume, you'll find all 3. You'll also find smart, passionate essays and a sprinkling of poems. Some truths can only be told in verse, after all. With this book, we take a cue from Emma Lazarus and, like Lady Liberty, lift our lamp beside the golden door. Let these works, full of creativity, determination, and courage, light your way and inspire you. Together, we'll build an America worthy of its long-delayed promise.
Well, thank you, Cliff. Now I am, I was looking for my button I could push that lets the speaker be the one on screen. So
Too late for me now.
You are unforgettable, Cliff.
So,
I'm
okay.
starting to get dizzy here, Bob.
Oh, we're there. But I'm going to find that button. But Cliff, that was good. I mean, this book, every book has a forward, and it's solid. I appreciate you doing that one. Now, Brenda Cooper here, her first sale to B Cube Press was one of my favorite stories it was in After the Orange, and when it was a woman and her dog out in the field, and it was an awesome story. And so, Brenda, why don't now we're not able to do whole readings, so we're doing about 506 about a 5 minute reading. I just don't want to burn up your time. So what I ought to do is let you tell us a little bit about your story and then do your read.
All right. I didn't quite get an introduction. So I'm a Pacific Northwest author of science fiction and fantasy. I've been writing, I don't know, 30 or 40 years now. I also do some poetry from time to time. And when the open call for this anthology came out, this is the story that popped up, and I really don't want to say too much about it, so I'll just jump into it and read you a bit of it. I wanted to be one of them. Who wouldn't? They grouped up on the corner of my street in DC, right under my tiny window. 10, 20, sometimes more. They sang songs and punched each other. They laughed. Then they lit their torches and marched off into the night. I didn't know where they went. If Mama did, she didn't tell me. She said it wasn't anywhere I wanted to go. No one at home laughed anymore. At 13, I remembered 2023 and 2024, between the pandemics and before Trump's times. I remembered laughing with my friends, and now most of my friends were gone, sent back to countries they'd never seen or to other states. Those of us still left in DC laughed quietly or not at all. My mom never laughed anymore. She told me how to hush, how to avoid, how to stay home, how to cling to shadows. She told me that was the only way I could live. Shadows are boring. The boys' voices filled the air with purpose, with energy, and sometimes even with joy. Mom watched them out of the sight of herself and never strayed on, and she whispered to me, "They will beat you." But they hadn't ever hit me. They ignored me. They said bad words to some of my friends, but my skin almost matched theirs. Mama was dark, but Dad had been a white soldier, and Mama said he gave me his white body and his night sweats and his love of math. And even though I had her black, kinky hair, I looked more white than black, especially if I kept my hair short. I watched them gather every Friday out my window. They'd spend half an hour talking and singing, sweating in the summer nights, and then they'd light their torches and march off, still singing. I imagined their marches hour on hour, keeping themselves going with music and chanting and light. I pictured little kids watching them, firelight dancing across the smiles on their faces, a parade of light. When you're 13, going where your mama doesn't want you to go seems like a very good idea. I studied the torches. I looked up how to make them online in the library. I found a broom handle in a closet and tore up a pair of pajamas that didn't fit me anymore and used dental floss to tie the whole thing together. I took a pink plastic glass half full of vegetable oil to the roof where Mama couldn't see me. I lit the edge of the pajama bottoms and fire licked up the side of the torch, smoked and sputtered out. I tried again. I wanted to cry with frustration, but I didn't. I just tried again. 3 nights in a row until the bottle of cooking oil was half empty. Mama didn't catch me, but one of the boys did. The 3rd night I tried to burn a torch. He came up the fire escape and said my name, Tariq. I knew him from school. He was 2 grades ahead of me. He played football. He'd never said a word to me before, never even looked at me as far as I knew. I swallowed, and even though I was already sweating in the hot summer night, it got worse. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped my failure of a torch. I swallowed and then forced out his name, Jerome. I clutched the torch to my chest and wondered if I had the strength to hit him with it if he beat me. To my utter surprise, his voice sounded kind. He said words I didn't expect. "Here, let me help you." I handed him the broomstick. He pulled out a flashlight and examined it. The edges of a partially burned superhero pajamas looked pathetic. The dental floss melted into the fabric, the broomstick itself pockmarked from use. He wore a light backpack. He set it down beside him, opened the zipper, and pulled out an old white shirt. "First, we prefer white. Make sure it's cotton." He cut away the half-burned blue pajamas with a pocket knife, his movements precise and confident. These are synthetic. They burn fast, but not for very long at all. His words could have been a put-down, but he sounded calm and helpful. The kind of material can burn hot enough for you to get hurt. Cotton burns longer and better. Wrap it pretty tight, but not too tight, or only the outside will burn. He brought out some metal wire and wrapped the cotton gently with it. Tight, he repeated. Then he brought out twine. Now add twine. He handed it to me and held one end for me while I wrapped the bundle, correcting me a little from time to time. Cross it there, or knot it and keep going. He held his finger on the twine while I finished tying off the string, and then he handed me his knife to cut the end. I held up the lighter I had purloined from my neighbor a week ago. Can we try it? He held up a hand, stood, cocked his head. He looked at me. He really looked the way a gym teacher at school did some days, and his face made an impression. Dark eyes and blonde hair and a little bit of peach fuzz, a small scar on his chin. He smiled. It'll work. Why were you making it? I couldn't spit out any words at all. I wanted to march with him, but what a stupid thing to say. And what if he said no? Maybe he saw the desire to join them in my eyes. He cocked his head. It'll be dark in 15 minutes. Come with us. Mama would kill me. It'll be a fun night, Jerome said, smiling. And that smile was all I needed. I was in. So that's the beginning. This was kind of a very different story for me to write because it has a protagonist who's both male and younger and only half white. So I'm hoping that I did enough justice too. But if you read the entire story through, you'll see why that was the right protagonist for that story. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Brenda. It was wonderful.
It's an extremely powerful story.
Thank you.
An extreme.
That's a great story. Anybody who follows me knows what a huge fan I am of Brenda's writing. So I've said so more than once, and I think I got to say it to Brenda in Chicago finally. I think after all these years of trying to run into her, I finally did, and she ran into me actually, and so I got to tell her how much I admire her work. But she's a fantastic stuff she's ever done. So you should buy this book and you should read that story. Absolutely. If for no other reason.
Yeah, the first time I read that story, I was like, I want to know where they're going with the torches, but I don't want to know where they're going with the torches. And I know I'm going to find out. So
for me, it was, in fact, the section that she just read, I have to wonder, what the government thought of her Google search history of exactly how to build a torch exactly correctly, and wind it tight but not too tight, and yeah. So
I did want to know how you did your torch research.
Online. I mean, I'm a writer. Besides this whole act, writing the story, searching for things, and really some of my other work as well, it's the kind of thing that might piss some powerful people off sometime, but you can't not do that. You just kind of, when I thought about it, I hesitated for just a second when I saw this, and I thought, no, you can't hesitate because you can't give in, especially in advance. You have to speak.
Right. That's exactly right. And in fact, that's what I've been talking about today online is, I can't speak for anybody else, and I can't tell anybody else what the right thing to do is, but I'll be goddamned if I'm going to roll over, talk, and I'm going to protest loudly right up until they knock on my goddamn door, and then while they're dragging me away. So you got to speak out, and we're writers, so we do that by writing. That's what we do.
If there's anyone on here who isn't following Jim, I'm pretty sure we all are. You certainly should consider following Jim, both for the things he writes about and for his phenomenal photography. Bob, thanks for inviting me in to join.
Well, Brenda, I can only say thank you so much. Now I'm not kicking out. You're welcome to hang around here because until I pack my room so tight that I have to start rejecting people, then I have to start kicking them out. But right now, I have asked Phil. We have a wonderful writer who's been with us since the beginning. If you've ever seen our snowflake patch with the sword and the snowflake, you owe that all to this writer, Susan McDonald. And Phil has agreed to read the opening of her story, or most of her story, Three Patriotic Witches. So, Phil, if you would.
Okay. And thank you, Susan, for the privilege of reading your story. It was one of our earliest submissions, and across the board got buy it now from the editors. So I'm going to start it. It's a very short piece, but I want you to buy the book. So I'm not going to give you the payoff of the ending. Okay. Three Patriotic Witches. Susan Murray McDonald. Three patriotic witches met to discuss the election results. Their intent was to eat pizza and drink Chianti. All but Joyce, who brought a 20-ounce bottle of Pepsi. Come on, Joyce, Sharon urged from where she stood in the kitchen counter filling wine glasses. We all need something fermented tonight. My doctor says no alcohol with these new meds, Joyce explained, and collapsed on Sharon's couch with a most unladylike plop. Honey, ditch that doctor, Karen told her. Life without wine? She shook her head at the dreadful thought. Why are you supporting Big Pharma, Sharon demanded. Drugs keep me alive, Joyce retorted. I enjoy being alive. Mother Earth provides all we need to keep healthy. A Sharon reminder, that and a few well-crafted spells. You sound like my Christian Scientist aunt. She thinks prayer will cure all ills, said Joyce. It will if you pray hard enough, Sharon insisted, and to the right spirits. She added with a smirk, besides, your husbands think you're a book club. They'll expect you to come home sloshed. Joyce unscrewed the cap of her Pepsi and took a sip, ending the discussion. The doorbell rang. Pizza! They shouted in unison. Sharon abandoned the pouring of the wine and collected the pizza from the delivery boy. She gave him a generous tip, then brought the pizza in to serve her book club. After a few bites of cheese and pepperoni, Karen asked, speaking of well-crafted spells, what are we going to do about the election? Sharon took a gulp of her wine and shrugged. Why should we do anything? We may despise him, but a majority did elect him. A brainwashed plurality, Joyce interjected. Not a majority. Brainwashed or not, he was the people's choice. We can put up with him for 4 years. Karen reached for another slice. We can, Sharon agreed. We're middle-aged white, and we go to church on Sundays. None of us have a functional uterus. We aren't in any danger. There was an uncomfortable silence as each considered those who were at risk. I don't know any death spells, Karen said glumly, but we could probably come up with something. Death spells are illegal, immoral, and unethical. Joyce took another swig of her Pepsi. Sharon shook her head. I don't think they're illegal anymore, unless Massachusetts still has some old laws on the books. Karen shrugged. They weren't in Massachusetts. But still, unethical and immoral, Joyce persisted. Karen eyed another piece of pizza. And dangerous. The threefold law says whatever you do, good or evil, will come back to you threefold. Well, we don't want to have to assassinate the SOB. We can do something annoying, but not fatal, or just not get in the way of someone else trying to get to him. Sharon washed down her pizza with another gulp of wine. Maybe just well-wishing whomever gets sent to take care of the problem? I've got a notion, Joyce volunteered. You remember I told you my cousin had a minor stroke 2 years ago? Well, she has to wear diapers now, and she's forever complaining about how they itch. That's just the beginning. And I want you to read the whole thing. Okay,
Oh, there he
there
goes.
we go. Okay.
Okay. Now, by the way, that price
I'm afraid Bob's already still on.
Mm-hmm.
is
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I thought Bob was going to leave you on the spot there, leave you hanging. I thought maybe Bob took off while you were reading to do something. You were up on the
No.
screen there for a
No,
while.
no,
No, I didn't know if she did want to read more or didn't.
no.
No.
I think that's enough to entice people to want to read more. I hope so, anyway.
Well, they will. I tell you, the joy of it is that it is a great book, and I mean a great story by Susan, and it is good. Now,
There's Susan saying hello right there.
I understand that.
Hey, Susan.
Oh, I understand that. Brenda, you're going to have to take off.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, you don't have to. But I did want to ask, and you may want to hang around to hear the answer. So, Jim, how did you enjoy the coronation? Did you watch it?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, you guys basically pay me to. My audience basically expects me to watch it, so I watched it. I figured, hell, I'm already in enough pain. How could it possibly be any worse? I was wrong again. But yeah, I mean, it's. I got to say, I mean, you guys all saw it or saw pieces of it or saw enough of it or knew what was coming. I do have to say that Elon Musk throwing the Nazi salute there at the end, that was the icing on the fascist cake. Boy, that was, and I got people out here, I got people yelling at me on social media saying, it's not, you're exaggerating. That's not what he did. He's autistic. He's just being exuberant. That's what I said, well, I got to tell you that you're telling me that the guy who grew up in apartheid, the rich white guy who grew up in apartheid South Africa, who endorsed the AfD party of Germany, a far-right German nationalist, xenophobic extremist party, that guy didn't throw the Hitler salute. Okay.
To give him credit, it was an exuberant Nazi salute.
Jesus, man! It's if you're surprised today, I welcome you back from your coma. There's nothing there. For me, there's no surprises. This is what we've been warning everybody about for goddamn I don't know how long. I mean, this asshole has been. And that's a technical political term. That's the proper term for this guy, asshole. We've been warning this guy since he first showed up in those Home Alone movies 40 years ago. Okay, the people in New York have been warning us about this asshole, and it just wasn't enough for people. It just wasn't enough. And so, I guess that's what my piece in this book is about. I'll read a bit of it if you want, but. If you're surprised today, I see people that are suddenly all appalled. Oh my God, the press. Oh my God, can you believe it? He's actually signing executive orders today to deport 20 million people. No shit. That's what he said. Welcome
Like,
back.
how many times did he tell us that was what he was going to do?
But I will tell you that I literally have. I don't know. I stopped recording them, but piles of hate mail here from people that are mad on the left that are, this guy here says most of us showed up. As a matter of fact, 48.4% showed up. So stop lumping us in with those who didn't. 48.4% showed up, and you're bragging
That's
about
pathetic.
it. Wow. Well, thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, there's some
They're all
people.
like this, I don't know what to say.
Hey, we're in the top
Yeah, my problem-
48.1%. Woohoo!
Yeah, my problem is that it's like I said this morning. Here's what I don't want to hear for the next 4 years. I don't want to hear liberals complaining about if you didn't show up and vote for whatever reason, whatever sacred liberal principle you have, whether it was Gaza or Ukraine or whatever the hell it was, and you couldn't show up and vote, then I don't want to hear any of your bullshit about how much you care about LGBTQ rights or civil rights or the war in Ukraine
Women's
or some
rights.
poor group of. I don't want to hear it. If you couldn't be asked to get out of bed and haul your skinny butt down to the goddamn polling station when it actually mattered, I don't want to hear complaints now. We all knew this was going to happen. We are dead on the timeline. You didn't need to be Nostradamus to predict this. They said what they were going to do. And for, I don't know, 15 wasn't enough. And then here we are.
Well,
I don't know what the hell to do at this
Jim,
point. I know it sounds depressing
gotta
as hell.
say-
And I'm not generally a depressive guy. I'm usually pretty optimistic. But goddamn, man, I spent my whole life. I'm 60-something years old now. And I grew up listening to people who fought in World War II saying things like, my God, man, how could this have happened? This is how. Right here. You're looking at it.
Okay, we've got a new participant.
And on that cheerful note, welcome aboard.
Hello.
Hey, I just want to say
Welcome to our
aboard,
happy
JC.
fun party with happy fun people.
Oh yeah. Oh, sounds like a
Well,
lot of good times
JC,
going on.
That was just, when you get Jim, I love you, Jim. You are so dead on when you are talking about, if you don't like what we got, show the hell up.
And that's exactly it, man. Again, here's my problem is that today, and since the election, my feeds are full of lefties and liberals and progressives and whatever the hell. I don't know what the hell we're calling ourselves nowadays. They're full of these people talking about, we'll fight. Well, we're not done. We're the resistance. It's Star Wars, whatever. You're going to fight you people that couldn't muster the effort to take a pencil and fill in a dot on the one day that it mattered. You're going to fight.
Okay.
Where are they in the war?
Forgive me, man. Forgive me, but I've been to war. War was my profession. And I got to tell you, man, I don't think you got it in you. Maybe you surprised me. Maybe things will get bad enough that maybe you
Jump in, JC.
I don't know.
Just jump in.
Jim, I'm gonna have to let JC read from his story.
Do it. Let's get to it. I mean, Jesus, let's get to it, man.
JC, tell us
what's
a
up?
little bit about yourself.
Let's see. I've been writing for probably a decade. I'm an Indigenous author. Most of my things are pretty political. So when I saw this submission call, I was like, that's kind of right up my alley. So I'm excited to be a part of it. I feel like, as a writer, that's I'm not here to entertain. I hope my stories are entertaining, but I also, I believe in thematics and theme and
Your story,
saying stuff.
Your story, Little Boxes, really touched a point. So you've got a 5-minute read. Let's not waste it.
All right, let me bring it up and I'll get going. Okay. Fred shook his head as Jake and Rick traveled back and forth, carrying the coffins to the showroom. On the clipboard, he checked off each one. A lot of little ones this time, the delivery driver remarked. We need them, Fred stated. The delivery driver shook his head, walked off to the side of the loading dock. It stood under the gray sky. He pulled another cigarette from his pocket, lit it up, and stared off into the distance as if somewhere out there was a better place, a place where a man didn't need a dozen child-sized coffins, a place where men of talent could use those talents to make their lives better. But there wasn't, not anymore. Oh, there were places to go, only no one could get there. They weren't letting anyone out. Passports were reserved for the rich now. But hey, the man had kept his promise and shut down the borders. Not the way anyone had expected, but a promise kept is a promise kept. The exodus had begun in earnest a year into his second term, after people started realizing it might not be such a good idea to strip everything down to the studs. Shit, any contractor could have told you that. It's easier to tear something down than to build it back up. Money men, oligarchs, they're great at wringing out profit, squeezing pennies from thin air. That's not what a country is supposed to be. That's not what a country is supposed to be for, damn it. A government is supposed to be about the people, not the companies, not the rich. Fred shook his head, tried to be more positive. If they took it down, they could build it back up. The cynic inside mocked, but at what cost? And who the hell would be left here to build it? Fred had sent his own wife and child away to live with distant relatives in Norway. Her dual citizenship was a gift. They sent him money sometimes from over there where the sickness hadn't taken hold, where they didn't need so many child-sized caskets. The money went a long way. The Norwegian kroner went a lot further than a dollar these days. Hell, a man couldn't even afford to drink himself to death anymore, and Fred sincerely wanted to. Rick and Jake carried in the last caskets. These ones were adult size because if it can kill a kid, it can kill an adult just as easily. Fred placed the last check mark on the clipboard and called over the delivery driver, avoiding reading the name on the man's badge. All there, Fred said. The driver nodded, climbed up on the truck deck, and grabbed the door strap. Then he leaped off the deck, using his weight to pull the door closed. With a rattle and a clang, the door went down on that empty cavern. Fred watched him drive away, give him a hollow wave the driver probably didn't see. Most people didn't look back when leaving a funeral home, not the living, and certainly not the dead. With a heavy sigh, he turned on his heel and stepped inside, prepared himself to check out the mess Rick and Jake had made of his storeroom. The place hadn't been this full in years, but now all the space was full, coffins taking up a space both physical and spiritual. Fred showed them where to put the coffins to maximize the space, how to put down towels to prevent scratches on the surfaces of the cheap pine boxes. A bell rang in the storage room, a customer. And that's where I chose to leave off.
Well, thank you very much there, sir. That was I got to tell you, if this story, when you get to read the whole thing, I had to believe that it was hard to write.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, thinking about the consequences on the small scale. We all worry about the big scale, but when it comes down to it, we're just talking about lives lost based upon decisions for profit. And that's kind of the tack I took when I was thinking about, well, what's the most horrific thing about this future? And it's really just the lives lost, right? And so I tried to imagine a way where that would come into play.
Yeah. When I read it the first time, it left me gasping at the end. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you this, guys. We were all a little bit numb by the end of reading almost 300 stories, many of which were, as painful as this one. But thank you very much. Now, I'm going to bring on a young lady. Oh, actually, somebody I've never met.
I haven't seen you in ages.
I know. We haven't been in the same space in a while.
Yeah. So,
Nancy Jane Moore, right?
That's it.
Phil, tell us about Nancy.
Well, I first met Nancy on the Bookview Cafe, which is a publishing co-op of professional authors. I know she's a retired lawyer, and not within our acquaintance since 2008. She has transplanted herself from Texas to Oakland, and she's still writing, and she writes some of the most kick-ass action scenes from her experience in martial arts. I don't want to know how many black belts she has. But anyway, she is a wonderful writer, and I'm very glad she is being included in this anthology.
Wow.
Well,
thank you.
Now, you wrote us a poem, didn't you?
I did. I have been writing 10 years ago, I started writing a little morning thing to try to figure out, what I'm feeling about this morning. And it started falling into haiku format. It's actually more of what's called a senru in poetry. And so I have a large collection of them. And, most of them are probably not really worth it as a poem, but this came together and I started writing a story and I said, wait a minute, I have some poems that are right on target. And if I put them together right, they'll work for these people. So that's why you got a poem instead of a story.
Well, then let's hear it.
All right. It's called Not Civilized Yet. The election proved what I've been saying for years. Not civilized yet. Grifters, oligarchs, and extreme Christians in charge. Not civilized yet. Cops and presidents can get away with it all. Not civilized yet. Control all women. Who cares if old people die? Not civilized yet. We're fighting once more for the rights we thought we'd won. Not civilized yet.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry it took me so long to Zoom you in. I had my private chat open, and so I very much appreciate that. And JC, I'm about to give your seat away, so thank you so much for coming. Now, JC, yeah, is that how I pronounce it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Now, this was not your first sale, right?
No. Yeah, I've made plenty of sales.
Yeah, I thought you had quite a few, but you get an opportunity to hear from some folks who this was their first sale. Well, you take care, because I'm going to swap you out for this is Louise's chair. Louise Marley has one of the best chairs in the world.
I think it should share our meeting. Hi, Louise.
Hey guys, sorry, my pie was done.
Oh, well, yeah.
I
It's
spent
American
this.
pie.
I spent
Now,
this day. cooking.
Louise, have you met our cast up here?
I know them all. Well, I'm not sure Jim and I have met in person, but I'm a follower.
Well,
It's good to meet you. And I cannot fault you at all for prioritizing pie over everything else. I would do the same.
It was, I couldn't bear it today, so I just tuned out of everything, and I decided that I would for my family, I would make a comfort food meal. So it's Italian pot roast and polenta and apple pie.
Ooh.
And it's out now, so I
need to come to your house.
Safe.
Yeah.
Come to my house, yeah, to my tiny table.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well, Bob is busy typing something.
Yes. Okay, Louise, you go.
I'll go.
Yeah.
I'm ready to read. Okay. This is a very short story. I hardly ever do short, so I guess when I do short, I really do short. And it's called Just One Vote. The flames towered high against the night sky, red and hot and fierce, dancing this way and that against the faint stars. They crackled and smoked, threatening to burst out of the fire pit. Lila grew too warm, watching, and had to step back. She was already burning, with anger and with resentment. She was hot to do some damage. She was doing damage, of course. As she stood with baby Alice in her arms, she watched a pile of comics catch a spark and begin to burn. A stack of paperback novels had already been devoured. A pair of fishing boots softened and sagged, and she shifted her position to save Alice from breathing the rank burned rubber smell as the boots succumbed to the heat. A fishing pole and tackle box beneath them were already blackened and bent. Lila knew she would be picking up garbage cans full of hunks of ruined metal and blobs of melted plastic out of the ashes when this was over. If she hadn't been holding Alice, she might have cheered when the golf clubs began to char, and the canvas bag holding them grew red spots here and there. They were new, those clubs, and expensive. They wouldn't burn, but no one would ever swing them again. She was aware the fire was too big for the fire pit, and she braced for the sounds of fire engines racing into their neighborhood. Instead, her neighbor Suzanne wriggled through the fence that separated their houses and trotted toward her, carrying a fire extinguisher. Lila, what's going on? Your bonfire is... She stopped and stared at the fire pit, where the golf clubs were gradually blackening. Are those Rocky's clubs? Where's Toby? With my mother. Toby, at 4, might have interfered with this operation. He loved those comics, as did his father. Lila, Suzanne said, her eyes growing wide with alarm. What's going on? Does Rocky know you're doing this? She set the fire extinguisher on the ground. It wasn't needed, as the flames had begun to subside. The smell of burning canvas joined the scent of melting rubber. Lila wrinkled her nose as she turned to Suzanne. Stinks, doesn't it? And no, Rocky doesn't know. With relish, she added, it's a surprise. Surprise? Suzanne blinked. That you're burning his golf clubs? Yes. Well, trying to. Suzanne turned to gaze in obvious confusion at the mess of the clubs and the bag and the boots. As the fire died down, other things already destroyed in the fire appeared. There were baseball hats, their insignias gone forever. There were the dissolving remains of a styrofoam cooler, the wreck of an aluminum folding chair, and a half-consumed Coors beer sign with most of its letters gone. In the middle of everything, a pile of shirts and jackets and jeans smoked steadily. Lila, Suzanne breathed, you burned Rocky's clothes? Well, again, I tried. They don't burn very well. Most of these things don't, even with fire starter poured over them. She pointed to the empty Sterno can on the ground near the fire pit. But his clothes? Not all of them. Alice stirred and Lila shifted her to the opposite shoulder, cupping her little head with her hand and snuggling her close. He still has that fucking t-shirt. He was wearing it when he left the house today. T-shirt, Suzanne said. You know the one. You saw it at the barbecue over the weekend. Oh, her neighbor breathed. Oh, yes, that one. She put her hands on her hips, surveying the detritus beneath the collapsing flames. Wow, Lila, you must be really mad. Lila turned away from the fire, gazing across the yard at the driveway where, very soon, Rocky would appear. Her voice was tight and low. Mad doesn't cover it, Suzanne. I'm furious, raging, murderous. But Lila, over a t-shirt? Lila looked into Suzanne's face, and Suzanne recoiled at the expression in her eyes. It was one step over the line, Suzanne, one step too far. She turned back to the fire, watching it eat up the last of what would burn, char and stain what wouldn't. It was the ballot. What? What ballot? My ballot, my vote. What about it? Lila drew a shuddery breath, feeling her rage begin to subside, just as the flames were doing. The kids were sick with that virus everyone had, and I couldn't leave them, so I gave Rocky my ballot to mail. But the election was 3 weeks ago. I know. Lila breathed in again, more steadily this time. The pile of ruined belongings made her feel better, much better, better than she had all day. I went out to his truck last night for his travel mug to give it a good wash, because he never thinks of it. I found my ballot stuffed in that little nylon trash bag he carries, just folded in half and stuffed in there like junk mail. Suzanne raised her eyebrows. Uh-oh. I took it in the house, and when I showed it to him, he said he forgot. I asked him about his own ballot, and he said he filled it out and mailed it at work, but he forgot to mail mine. Lila, I don't think... Lila turned an icy gaze on her neighbor. You don't think he did it on purpose? I mean, it's just one vote. Lila's rage began to grow again like a hot spot in a dying fire. One vote? One vote? Who did you vote for, Suzanne? Suzanne's gaze shifted sideways, away from Lila's. Well, I didn't. Didn't what? Suzanne stared at the ground. Didn't vote? You didn't vote? Are you kidding me? Women died so you could vote. Suzanne lifted her head and said in a defensive tone, "Well, Lila, I'm sorry, but it's not like it would have made a difference." Lila squeezed Alice too tightly, and the baby began to snivel. She made herself relax her arms, but her jaw was still tight, and her voice was like gravel. "Every vote makes a difference, and this was mine. Mine." He said he forgot. He didn't forget. He knew I voted differently from him, and by forgetting, he doubled the value of his. That means not only was my vote not counted, his got twice the weight it should. Don't you see that? Well, I guess I do, but... And then there was the T-shirt. Oh, Suzanne bit her lip. Oh, I see, the one that said, how does it go? Your body, my... Lila interrupted, her voice so tight it hurt. That one, I want to burn that too. But you can't, since he's wearing... You don't think so? Well, how could you? I mean, he'll come home eventually. Lila exhaled a long, noisy breath. She watched the last of the fire flicker and begin to go out, taking with it the crumbs of Rocky's treasured comics, the lurid covers of his paperback collection. He won't let you have it, Suzanne said grimly, not after he sees all this. He might not have a choice. Do you think he sleeps in it? Lila grinned at her neighbor, coldly, deliberately showing her teeth. Even if he does, it's going to be burned, wherever it is. I have another can of fire starter. That's it.
Louise, I think the words are
I really love that
evil.
story.
Yeah. Thank you, Louise. And my time here has expired. So I'm going to say thank you to all of you. And I'm going to bow out. And I hope to see Bob just put up the Quora code again. And we'll see you online. I'm helping to host first Sunday on the B Cube Sunday morning. And I believe we have Louise scheduled and Nancy Jane Moore for that first Sunday in February. And we'll talk more about this Alternative Liberties experience. Thank you all.
Good to see you, Phil.
Okay.
Bye.
Hi, Phil.
All righty.
So I'd like to jump in for a sec, Bob, if I may. Say a couple things. One of them is, although you heard the entirety of that story, Louise has a whole other story in the book that you haven't heard. So buy a copy for yourself, your dog, your friends, your neighbors, the annoying person with the Trump bumper sticker down the street. Buy them, buy, and then
buy a copy for the guy wearing that goddamn T-shirt.
Yeah.
Hey,
also, I want to mention for Nancy Senru, which are like haiku, that she has done a whole series of these, and many of them, as she said, and but what she didn't say is many of them are really wonderful. And I am hoping still someday for a coffee table book of her poetry. But there are the Not Civilized Yet is a subset of them, where the final 5-syllable line is not civilized yet, and she's got a whole host of them, and many of them are just brilliant and wonderful. And you should hunt her down on social media and hope that she posts more of them. So
that would be good. Now, Jim, are you ready?
Sure. If you want, I'll read a bit. This, for context here, this is not fiction. I wrote this the day after the election, so some of you may have seen bits and pieces of it. There's a much more refined version in the book we're talking about. Oh, sure. Eventually, a decade or so down the road, after the recession and the wars and the riots and the violence, just like those who voted for the Third Reich, those who voted for Trump are going to get screwed by the very rapists they helped elect. And you know, I just don't care about that either. Sure, they'll have it coming. But if I'm still around to witness their comeuppance, an unlikely event to be sure, but maybe I'll get lucky, if you can call living in that world luck, I'll feel neither joy at their misery or sympathy for their suffering. Fuck them. See, we're all going to get screwed, right along with them, the undeserving and the guilty alike, the good and the bad Germans of both. Not just us, but all our friends too. The war in Ukraine is over. Putin won last night. NATO and Europe are next. The war in Gaza isn't over and won't be for a while, but the outcome is inevitable now. But hey, at least you got your principles, right? Taiwan, South Korea, sucks to be you. And if it's any consolation, it's going to suck to be us too. But then again, you all knew this. I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know. We all knew. But for a lot of people yesterday, well, it just wasn't enough, and here we are. Yeah, I know. You're mad at me now for saying so. Be mad. It'll keep you warm when the power goes out. And I wish you were mad enough yesterday to show up. And so here we are. Trump isn't going to just be a president again. He's going to be quite literally a dictator because there is absolutely nothing to hold him back this time. We handed him the White House, the court, the legislature, and total immunity. And it's not just this latest election. It's all the ones that came before, too. You need to face what that means. He's going to take revenge on us. Yes, he is. He's going to do what he said he would do. Everything you love, but you knew that, and it wasn't enough. You're going to have to face it. Trump is going to burn down the world, and maybe that's what it'll finally take. That's what the far left progressives shouted at me back in 2016. Burn it all down. Burn it all down. Well, burn it all down, I guess. Burn it all down isn't the moral high ground. It's just arson. And people die in a fire. But again, here we are, and careful. Because now it's going to burn, and I hope those who started this fire get everything they've got coming to them. And who knows? Maybe they're right. Maybe when we're squatting in the ruins, covered in ash, maybe then it'll be enough to get you to show the fuck up. Or not. I don't know. What should you do? What should any of us do? I don't know. I'm out of ideas. I'm old. I'm tired. I'm worn out from this fight. And more, I'm worn down from shouting the alarm and watching it fall on deaf ears. What to do? Flee, maybe? Get out while you can. If there's some place that'll take people who didn't give enough of a fuck about their own fate to change it when they had the chance. Hopefully Europe won't turn away desperate Americans fleeing fascism like we did to the Jews fleeing Germany back in the 1930s. But hey, if they do, well, you can hardly blame them, can you? But again, and again, you knew all of this. Yes, you did. And now, grim, depressing, panic attack. You knew it would come to this if you didn't show up, and it wasn't enough. Why? Why wasn't it enough? What's the excuse this time? Like I said up above, I don't know, and I don't care. But I'm sure we're going to hear all about it anyway, and why those of us who actually did care, who sounded the alarm klaxon over and over, and who actually did show up are somehow to blame. I'll see you in the camps. I'll be the guy drinking prison wine with Hillary Clinton. Well, deafening silence on the other end.
Oh, and Jim, I just got to say, love your stuff.
Yeah, and that's a pretty grim. This bit is a pretty grim story. It's like I said earlier, I'm usually a lot more optimistic person, even if it doesn't always seem that way. And I think we'll get through this eventually. The thing is that it get worse before it gets better. I mean, it's liable to get a lot worse for a lot of people. I mean, this guy, I don't know if you listened to his inauguration speech today, but he didn't back away from it. It wasn't rhetoric. He literally, in the first words to America of his second presidency, vowed to invade foreign countries and take their assets for America.
Now, can someone tell me? I didn't watch. I couldn't bear to watch it. But if you watched it, Jim, is it true that when he said that about changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico, that Hillary Clinton just cracked up completely?
I don't know. I didn't see her face when he said that, but there was plenty of cheering in the audience, and that is the kind of shallow, mindless, ignorant patriotism that, again, I said this online earlier, and I'm not a big fan of quoting myself, but what I said was, let me see if I can find it here. I made a crack about Robert Heinlein earlier, so that's biting me in the ass. But 1 second.
Well,
You know, I said, you know, what I said was, remember the dumbest, crudest, most juvenile bullies from your grade school days? Remember those people, the ignorant, brutal goons from the shitty homes whose existence was devoted to and torture of those they deemed weak and helpless and different? Well, congratulations, America. By not showing up, you elected those people to run our civilization. And so to answer your question, yeah, you know, I mean, that's entirely what this guy's speech, and the people that were cheering it, they're those people. They're the little toadies that follow the bully around in every shitty school you were ever in. And yeah, I wouldn't put it past Hillary to have cracked up in the audience, because she told us, she warned
Told
us it
us.
would come to this
He was
over and
right
over
about
again.
everything.
Well,
Yeah, you know, and like you said, I'm not I admire Hillary Clinton more than a bit, and I've written about that. I'm not a fan of any particular politician, but I think if there's anybody that has the right to say, "I told you so," it's Hillary
She's the one.
Clinton.
Well,
So
I have
hey,
to go.
Jim,
Sorry. Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
yeah,
thank you. Now, Louise says you got to go have dinner with people.
Yes.
Well, Louise,
yeah, I
Enjoy
gotta
that
get
pie.
out of here.
hey, and Jim, you go take care of yourself and get back and be healthy. You know, you've got a lot of
Yeah,
posts to write. But thank you.
we'll get there. Like I said, I've been fairly quiet this month because I had to be, but I'm on the road to recovery. I'm doing well. Everything's going the way the doctor said it would go, and I should be back online full strength here, better than I've been in the last year or so, here in the next couple of weeks. So I expect by February 1st I'll be back to full power. So
Okay.
expect that. All right, and I'm gonna bow out now. Hey, it's an honor to be online with you guys. I appreciated being invited. So all right.
Bye, Jim. Good to see you.
Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Now, I hate to lose those guys, but I'm gonna say, hey, Don or Dan,
Hello.
down there, you're gonna see a little gearbox below your picture.
Uh-huh.
Click on it and mirror your screen.
Oh, okay.
Just
Can
turn
do.
it off. That is.
There,
Yeah.
you know why? Now we know what college you went to.
That's right.
It's a different planet, actually, but yes.
Or whatever your shirt is. Now, Don, tell us a little bit about your writing world.
Oh gosh. Let's see. I've up until now I've mostly been writing for role-playing games. You know, I've written and published a few games and a few supplements for a few games. This is actually my first publication for a dedicated fiction anthology. So this is an exciting opportunity for me. I regret that the anthology is necessary, but I'm glad to be here.
Well, hey, um, hey, just a second. I'm going to punch a button here. There we go. We had Larry Hodges backstage. See, those of you who are out there, you can't see that we got this wonderful conversation going on backstage. And Larry went silent on us. So
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
I'm going to kick Larry out, and then he's going to come back. I hope he comes back. Nancy, if he doesn't come back, could you go get him? Okay. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. Back to you, Don.
Well, that's okay. I guess
Quick question. What games have you written for?
I've written a few things for Fate mostly, and let's see, I did things for another game called the Pip System. It's another generic gaming system, and I did a few modules that I really liked for a game called the Ministry Initiative, which is sort of a steampunk game based on a series of novels, actually, that I really enjoyed. So that was a fun opportunity for me.
Neat. What novels? Who wrote the novels?
Yeah.
Remember?
Well, that is good.
can-
Now
I'm
tell
gonna
us
put you on
about
the
the
spot.
story
Sorry.
you wrote. Tell us about the story you wrote for this book.
Um, gosh, I'm not even sure where this story came from. I saw the prompt for the anthology. My wife, who is my inspiration, she alerted me that there was an opportunity here, and I think when I was out in the cold walking my dog, and I guess I don't know. The unfortunate thing about the world we live in is that there are there's a lot of motivation to write. So, I just thought of all the horrible things that might be happening in our near future, and sort of dipped in my hand and picked out one of them, and I was surprised when a whole story came with it. So,
Well, now, do you live in Florida?
no, I live in Michigan. I live as almost, well, maybe not as mathematically as far from Florida as you can get, but maybe from a climate point of view, northern lower Michigan.
Well, cool. Well, sir, you wrote a nice story that I thought you hit some nice points in Florida. So why don't you get ready to read us about a 5-minute version of it, or 5 minutes out of it?
I'd be glad to. So this story is called "So Gallantly Live Streaming," and this is the first scene of the story. Derek had begged Senator Snow to lose his name when it came time to choose a director for the first 4th of July parade of the president's 4th term. She hadn't. He knew he had his own success to blame. He'd dragged the prior year's parade from disaster to triumph. People had stopped talking about him as the man who tanked a $7 billion esports platform and started praising him as the man who saved Independence Day. He'd accepted the congratulatory call from the president with humility, and then he'd fled to a private mental health retreat in West Virginia. But then fall and winter had come and gone, and Senator Claudia Snow had called him again, speaking the 4 words no American could refuse, not if they wanted to keep their citizenship: "The president needs you." By the first morning of July, symbols of the parade's chaos littered Derek's home in Alexandria. Whiteboards with multicolored lists, laptops left open to municipal codes and email threads, hundreds of sticky notes, and discarded takeout boxes that smelled of pizza and curry. He'd been on the phone telling the principal of a California high school she had to have her marching band on Pennsylvania Avenue promptly at 6 a.m. on the 4th, when the phone beeped and its screen told him Senator Snow was calling. 6 a.m. Eastern Time, he told the principal, and took the new call. "Senator? Derek, why am I hearing that you're still trying to hold a parade in D.C.? Of all the mystifying yet menacing calls he'd received from the senator, this one had started as an 8 out of 10. "The capital, Derek. The capital's been moved to Palm Beach." "Florida? You can't be the only person in the country who doesn't know this. Please hold." He glanced between the 2 laptops on his kitchen table, then muted his phone. "Taylor." His more or less girlfriend poked her tousled blonde hair over the back of the couch. "Uh-huh. Have you heard anything about the Capitol moving?" "Yeah, to Palm Beach. Congress assembled at Mar-a-Lago 2 hours ago." "Why aren't I seeing anything about this?" "It's all over Trumpet." Derek wondered if there was a word for the sinking feeling he got whenever he realized he needed to join yet another social media platform. A thought struck him. Wait, Trumpet isn't open to the public yet. They expanded the beta and I got an invite. You need to start networking with the right people. All the big influencers are there now. She disappeared behind the couch. He was reminded, once again, who had the brains in their relationship. He stared at the phone, considering the obvious futile protest. Surely no one could expect him to relocate the parade from DC to Palm Beach in 3 days. Settled on a lie and took the senator off mute. The story that the parade is in DC is just a cover for security reasons. Behind closed doors, where all systems go for Florida. Good thinking. All the Antifa terrorists will be in DC instead. They won't even get any media attention. Speaking of, why is all the publicity still on X? This time he thought he knew where this was coming from. 1 second, he said, and muted the phone again. "Taylor, the SpaceX rocket that crashed in Texas. As of today, was it Antifa terrorists or was it Elon's fault?" She didn't bother peeking over the sofa. Elon was working with Antifa. The president trumped about it just a few hours ago. He did what about it? Tweeted? Derek, it hasn't been tweet for years, and the platform is called Trumpet. I get it. So yesterday when the president told everyone it was Antifa, bad information from the FBI directors being denaturalized and deported, and Elon, and most of SpaceX, and 10,000 Democratic voters from Austin. He stared at her. Well, the rocket landed in a red district and took out about 5,000 Trump voters, so to balance... Christ, he unmuted the phone again. Right, I have a team on standby waiting to delete our material from X and roll out to Trumpet, just waiting for the right moment. If you think now's a good time, now would be perfect. Glad to hear you're a step ahead of this, Derek. See you in Palm Beach. After the senator hung up, Derek put his head on the kitchen table, among his sticky notes and takeout napkins, and tried to breathe. He heard Taylor's soft tread on the carpet, felt her hands on his shoulders. Want me to pack you a bag? Aren't you coming? Oh, I packed an hour ago. He sighed, sat up, and met her amused blue eyes. What would I do without you? You'd watch a lot more porn, and you'd never get the Wordle right. And that's how the first scene of the story ends.
Thank you. Now I'm still trying to figure out something.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to figure out how I managed to get that QR code in behind your lettering. That took effort. Well, I got to say, sir, your story, it was one that didn't take a lot of convincing to buy. I thought it was good. And I enjoyed it. And, I see Cliff is coming back. I just hope he washed his hands. Well, it's all fun.
I'm not baking a pie right now.
Okay. Now, just a second here. I'm going to. Anybody have any questions very quick for Don? Because I'm copying and pasting his link that he gave us for the RPGs he's written for. Now, I understand there are some RPG games out there that are not Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to applaud the willingness of people to sacrifice their time for those lesser games. And that was a joke.
We're laughing on the inside.
Laughter when I make jokes, damn it. But Don, I very much appreciate you being here and doing that. Now you're on my screen. You're right next to a. Now, can I call it ping pong or do I have to call it table tennis?
You can do either one.
Okay. Well, what we have here is, I'm going to steal his punchline, is the best ping pong player in all of SIFWA. And as he also has made point of on many occasions, the best science fiction writer in the ping pong world, or the Table Tennis Association.
USA Table Tennis.
Yes. So, Larry Hodges, you've been writing for what, like 150 years?
A little bit longer than that.
How many stories you sold?
I'm debating whether to give a round off or exact number, because I actually just updated things, so I know that I've sold exactly 227, but I'll just say over 200. I do a lot of over-the-top satires. Some of the stuff here is serious. Mine are really ones more I tend towards the idea is like, is this too over the top? If it is, then that's good. That's what I like. So I tend to go for that. If it's not over the top, it's like, okay, let's rev it up a little bit. And by the way, while some of you were watching the inauguration, I don't know why, I had a much more important mission. I was putting the finishing touches on a 10,000 word story. Don't know if I'll find a market for it, about alien with super technology that conquers the earth single-handedly for one simple thing to fix all our problems. And I wish I could tell you the solution because it's pretty nifty, but that would give it away. Anyway, and by the way, I just won the over 40 and over 60 at the US Open Table Tennis Championships. But we'll get back to the more serious stuff.
Now, Larry, we're going to make you read now. That's the beauty of having a schedule you have to keep.
Okay, I'm going to show you one really, really quick show and tell. I'm wearing this shirt.
You're going to have to mirror your camera.
Unfortunately, it's not. Okay, well, it says, "Let's make America smart again." I had choice of that and several other similar ones, but I went with that one. I could also put this on.
Okay.
Smart again, but I won't bother. All right. Put my reading glasses on. All right, this is called Legacy, although while I was writing it, it was called Legacy of a Loony. I decided Legacy was better. Just keep it simple, Legacy. I do need to mirror my screen says look mirrored. Anyway, okay, Legacy. I'm gonna read half of it, which is about 600 words, and then we'll stop there. They hate me, all of them, even the ones who pretend to be Trumpers, but have always been never Trumpers. Never has a president been treated so badly. It justifies everything I'm going to do. I gestured with a half-eaten fried chicken leg at the large polycarbonate tube mounted to the floor. In just a few minutes, I'll go into that stasis field. 1,000,000 years will pass in an instant, and then I'll be king of the galaxy. Sir, it was Vance, my backstabbing vice president with a ridiculous beard, slick clothes, and nauseating cologne. In 15 minutes, that what's-his-name Democrat, Peter Butt something, takes the oath of office and allegedly becomes president. Ha, that'll never happen. Yes, I said, dripping as much sarcasm into the word as possible. I bet it scared him. Ready to apologize yet? Sir, I can't help it. All the judges, the election officials, the observers, they all say we lost. They're all part of it, jealous of the most successful administration ever. I won by a landslide again. Everybody knows it. Plus, we were betrayed. It was supposed to be taken care of. Damn you, Elon Musk. All that work on amendments I could run for a third term, wasted. I took a last bite and tossed away the chicken leg, snickering when it struck the man, leaving a crumbly grease stain on his shirt collar. Of course, Vance said as he brushed up the crumbs. And their scheme was so brilliant that they left no evidence and kept thousands of conspirators quiet. He hesitated for a moment, staring at his shoes. But we did lose. We will see. So, do you have another reason to waste my time? You backstabbing, soon-to-die traitor who accepted the results, just like that rat Pence did. Should have let them hang him. Vance, too. They're both bribed. I'm sure of it. The head robot is here, said Vance, along with the stasis field. All 10 million robots are programmed to be completely loyal and obedient to you. BL1, you may enter. In stomped the most beautiful sight of my life, goose-stepping in time to the Robert Wagner opera music that suddenly played in my head. It was dressed in all black, with a black cape and oversized superhero helmet. It was gorgeous, and of course, I designed the look. All those new reports and lawsuits from Marvel about supposedly looking like Darth Vader, I have no idea who that is. I never met him. Are fake news and witch hunts. The robot came to a stop in front of me with its legs widespread, hands on hips, head high, its dark visor staring down at me. I'm bigly tall, but this thing was huge, as big and tall as Baron, the only person taller than me I allow around. I don't like taller people near me, but maybe it's okay with a robot. Now, what's its name again, Vance? It's BL1. The BL stands for blind loyalty. To you, of course, sir. BL1 sounds stupid and too hard to remember. Robot, I'll call you blind loyalty. Thank you, Mr. President Trump, said blind loyalty in a deep voice that also attracted lawsuits from the estate of some guy named Jones. Your orders are my command. So you and the other 10 million robots will follow my orders no matter what. You are the final and only word for us, Mr. President. Good. Vance, bring the nuclear football. It's already set with the coordinates we worked out. I'll stop there. You'll just have to wait till it. Am I frozen again? Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, the picture froze.
The
Okay.
picture is frozen, but the sound is perfectly good. You ended on a delightful cliffhanger.
I will stop there, and you'll have to buy the book and find out what he does with the nuclear bombs, the 10 million robots, and what that was about the galaxy. And it's got an interesting twist coming. Okay. That's it for me.
As opposed to the first part of the story, which was all completely straightforward.
Perfectly straightforward, and just very under the top.
Yes, under the top.
Well, thank you, Larry. Now, Larry is possibly, if anybody ever wants to know how to break into B Cube Press, read Larry. Larry is right up there with Karen Anderson, Susan McDonald, in terms of people who truly seem to strike the chord we like around here. We like retribution. I mean, no, we don't like retribution. That's the other guy. We like humor. We like where people win in the end. It's all good. Now, just a second here. I have behind us now, Larry. Since you're frozen,
You can take me off.
I'm gonna put you out and change you out
Hi, everyone.
for a poet. Okay.
Wow, we have two poets on one screen. I think we're over quota.
Yes.
Hey, Andrew,
Hello, Bob.
you Nancy Moore, right? Nancy Jane Moore.
Yes.
Oh, good. Then you're in good company. Now you have two poems in the book, but you're going to read the first one, if I recall.
Oh, I'd rather read the other one. It's not happy.
I agree with his choice. So
Who's choice?
Well, I had you down as reading Art is Resistance, but if you want to read the interminably long one with lots of Latin words, that I defer to you because both were good enough to buy, and so either is good enough to read.
Thank you.
So I'm going to expand your perspective so that we can you can show the world your bearded face. And it takes a second sometimes for my mouse to turn back into a pointer.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you get started while I try and make it do that.
Okay. So the interminable poem is Ad Regum Victorum. From my windowless cell, I would like to send you a photograph, or maybe two, a pair of before and after pictures, not as a threat, but as a history lesson and a caution, a reminder of the fate of the man whose face you seem to imitate and assume when playing the strong man's role at your rallies and for the cameras. And I imagine, as you do, no, I got that wrong, sorry. As I imagine you must also do when preparing in the bright lights before your vanity's mirror. Chin held high and jaw out thrust, your eyes narrowed and reflecting the coldness of a king and natural-born killer. I would like to send you the photographs of the man who made Italy's trains run on time, but whose own time ran out on that lonely road near the village of Dongo beside Lake Como, where the partisans captured him and later executed him with his mistress and most of his companions, before they dumped their corpses in the Piazzale Loreto. Yes, here in my windowless cell with the white light always burning, where I await the day of my own execution, I wish to do you this favor, this one good intentioned service, out of Christian love and forgiveness, a gift as a caution, not a threat, to send you the photo all in sharp focus in black and white, and the harshest possible resolution of your hero Mussolini and his mistress Clara Petacci hanging by their feet from the naked rafters of a filling station, and the crowd of onlookers throwing stones and spitting upon their corpses. But do not think of me only as your prisoner or your enemy. Think of me as this, your good servant. The Roman general's slave without chains, riding in your chariot of triumph, standing behind you, holding the golden crown above your head, and quietly speaking into your ear the words, Memento Mori, offering the caution and reminder, Omnius Gloria Brevis Est. All glory is fleeting. Fascists and their kingdoms fall, with a dreadful ending after all, especially for the dictator who finds himself hanging by his feet, cold and dead and small. After triumph, not everything is pretty.
Thank you. Now, Andrew,
Yes.
you've been writing poetry for a long time and
Yes.
stories.
Yeah, I started writing back in 1976.
1976.
Yeah.
The bicentennial year.
Wow. Yeah, I graduated high school that year.
You were 2 years ahead of me, Bob. I only started publishing back around 2017.
Well, here, just a second here. Let me rephrase the thing because the camera took away my ability to turn my mouse into a pointer. It's just weird. So we're all here this way. Now, Nancy, you said you were going to have to vanish from us.
I should get on and start making dinner and so forth. It's been this has been a great thing to do on a terrible day. So I appreciate it very much and appreciate the book and look forward to reading all the stories in it.
Well, I am glad you are. Karen just announced to us that the book is now live on the paperback. We weren't expecting it until 4:00.
It's 4:30.
Oh, I don't know.
Say 12:30 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah, did I ever mention to you that I'm old and I forget stuff a lot?
I seem to recall you're doing that once or twice in that time of our acquaintance.
Yeah. So, Andrew, how many times have we published you now?
You're muted, Andrew.
Well, I like the idea that he has to sit there and try and total it up because that speaks to the fact that he's it's great that he's I'm great having you on board and part of the B Cube family.
Thank you, Bob. You've published me twice, and you have one more piece that's waiting for publication in Scott's Planet.
Yes, you're coming to boy. You know, I got you and Cliff are both in Scott's Planet. He tried his hand at poetry.
I did, and you decided to pay me money for it. So hey,
just to get even with him, I think I put him right next to you.
Oh, that's good for him. Not so good for me because he's a tough act to follow. But which reminds me, when Nancy was here, we actually had 3 poets because you counting me.
And just at the beginning, we were hearing it for the editors, and I'd just like to remind you guys, we have Karen has now joined us, and I'm looking at my schedule that because of technical difficulties on the part of a few people, I bumped Amy Ivory Wolf ahead or behind. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Amory. Yeah, I'll hear about that one. I'm going to bring Amy on. Can you hear us, Amy? Okay, we can't hear you and you can't hear us. Okay, Amy, I'm going to take you off for just a second. And Karen, can you talk Amy through that? Tell her what we were saying on the chat.
Yes, I think all she needs to do is turn up the volume on her computer, and I think we'll be fine.
Oh, well, let's bring her back on.
Amy, I think all you need to do is turn up the volume on your computer, and you'll be okay.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
You can hear me. Okay. This is my
Yes.
office computer. Somebody gave me. It's not my good one.
Okay. I'm gonna. Well then,
everything's
Amy.
slow. Do you need me to turn anything up? I can hear you guys. Okay.
We can hear you fine. Your video is a little bit like, 2 frames a minute, but we can hear you.
We can hear you, and it'll be fine if you read.
Okay, so speak up.
Okay.
And you are. Where'd you go? Oh, there you go. Your work.
Just rubber.
What was the title of your work? Who's install number 1?
Yes.
Brilliant piece. It was one of the first ones we bought.
This is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys?
Yes.
Shoot.
We're good.
Okay, I'll read. You can hear me. Okay, this is called Who's Install Number 1. Brief. Sorry. Anyway, intro, I set out to write another story, and this is what came out. Who's Install Number 1? I was a girl born to a woman who is either deeply insecure or trying to protect me from the attention of men. I had short hair and a pixie cut as a child in the 60s. No other girl had short hair. What about Twiggy? My mother would say when I
Hold on for just a second. Amy, your scene froze up there for a second. And so I popped you off, and I'm going to bring you right back on. And if you need to adjust your computer a little bit, because we do want to hear your poem, your work. I think it's so that said, I'm going to try you again now. Hello, Amy. Okay. Well, we will
are
have
experiencing
Amy
technical
back
difficulties.
another time. And that said, Karen.
Yes.
I see you're still here.
I am.
Now, Karen, you're one of our editors.
Yes.
And I will hold you up as an example of people should read your work if they want to know what trips the trigger over here at B Cubed, because you're an excellent writer. What are you going to read for us today?
Well, I'm going to read a story that I wrote of the beginning of it called Unwanted Visitors, but you also have to tell me when you want me to read from on behalf of Paula Hammond.
Well, that's going to be a little later
Okay, then I'll jump in and do my story.
because I'm gonna work through the waiting room. And hello, Stephanie. I thought you might want to see the show
Hello.
from there, but I'm about
Hello.
ready to see if I can. Oh, wait a second.
Hi, Stephanie. Nice to see you again.
Nice
Stephanie,
to see you again.
we're,
Yes.
we're getting a little bit of echo. You may want to
Turn
mute,
down my volume.
either mute or turn down your volume. We're getting a lot of echo from that feed.
that's usually caused by somebody who has their phone on.
No,
Well, I turned down my volume. I hope that helps. Does that help?
I
Okay.
can hear music playing in the background in someone's house.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had to run off to the Starbucks because they're fumigating my house. So
You know,
I can mute until you guys are ready.
Yeah, if you can just mute till it's your turn to read, that'll work. There we go. Okay, Bob, do you want me to start?
Why, yes, ma'am. That's why I got your face on the big screen.
Okay, here we go. Unwanted visitors. I'd closed the drapes against the winter chill. No snow yet, but the wind shook the fir trees and rattled the metal porch chairs that I'd forgotten to bring in. Marie and I stood in my bungalow kitchen cooking spaghetti and reminiscing about grad school while sipping the Merlot that she'd brought. I'm so glad you got back in touch. It's been years, I said. What are you even doing these days? Marie gave an odd laugh. Was something making her nervous? I think you'd be surprised, she said. I can tell you the whole story over dinner. When a loud knock came at the door, my cat Shadow meowed and raced out of the kitchen. Lisa, were you expecting somebody? Marie asked. I shook my head. But by the time I set down the spoon I'd been used to stir the simmering sauce, I had a bad feeling. Oh, please don't let it be what I think it is. I snapped off the burner just in case it was. Stay here, I said, and hurried to answer the door. I knew the inspections we'd grown used to in Seattle weren't happening everywhere, at least not in the small college town where Marie lived. I opened the front door. Two beefy young men with pale skin and close-cropped brown hair walked in without asking. They wore the olive drab uniforms of the new federal security agency. Lise Parker, the taller one said, his thick finger poised over a data pad. His question was more of a statement. I gave a short nod. Yes. Routine check of the block. The agent's speech was devoid of inflection. He probably said that same phrase 50 times a day, or in the case of federal security, a night. They usually came at night. His partner bent slightly and pawed through my coffee table magazines, peered at the books in my bookcases, and opened drawers in the table where I sorted the mail. Marie came out from the kitchen and perched on the arm of a club chair. She was open-mouthed in disbelief. I stood by the sofa, my eyes on anything but the agents. I always stood when federal security came. The taller agent, the one who'd spoken, brushed past, and I wrinkled my nose. His cloying body spray was an assault. He jogged noisily upstairs to the bedrooms, squeezing his bulk through the narrow staircase. Meanwhile, in the dining room, his colleague stuck his hand in a vase. I moved closer to Marie. Security theater. I kept my voice low. Ever since the new administration declared Seattle a terrorist haven, I rolled my eyes to indicate the absurdity of it. The feds have been sending these rent-a-cops around to keep us on our toes, keep us frightened. They'll check the computers, maybe ask to see my phone. That's illegal, Marie said. They need warrants. You should just tell them to leave. I wish she would keep her voice down. I kept my tone even. Well, the feds have declared a state of emergency, and that means they don't need warrants. Of course, people are filing lawsuits, but in the meantime, putting up with these visits is easier than being arrested. I didn't add that my next-door neighbor, who'd resisted an inspection, had disappeared the following day. His bungalow now sat empty, the front lawn overgrown. The couple across the street had adopted his dogs. Had he left town, or was he in a detention camp? That's it.
All righty. Thank you, ma'am. That was spectacular.
Nice
The,
place to end the reading.
I'm
People can get the book and find out what happens.
And you can now order the print version, the paperback version.
well.
As well
Thank
as-
you, Karen. Now, Don says or Dan has to go. So, anything you want to say before you leave?
Just it's been great being part of this project. I'm looking forward to looking at this book and going back and reading through your entire archive. It sounds like you've got a lot of good fiction in your anthologies. So excited to read all of it.
Well, we're thrilled to have you not only in the book but here on the podcast today. And we'll have to have you on a Sunday morning one sometime because I still got to say the character of the Admiral and the character of the girlfriend sort of were two wonderful characters that brought your story to life. And you did a brilliant job with your characters. And between them and the moving around, the pacing was wonderful. A great story and demonstrates some real skill.
Thank you so much. I'm just glad that Taylor got to see the light of day.
Well, then I'm going to bid you adieu and go over here and bring in Mr. Walton and say hello. Now, Stephanie, you have, and we'll talk to you in just a second, Mr. Walton, because we can't, I love your story. It was a brilliant piece of work. But Stephanie, you got your poem ready to be read, and I'm going to turn your volume back up because I did sort of maybe could have been said that I muted you.
Yeah, because of the music was bad. Is it better now?
I don't know. I just unmuted you. So I'll let the others be
It's
the
not
judge.
noticeably interfering, so just feel free to go ahead and read.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so this poem, which Bob so kindly accepted, is called It's Already Happened. They can't do that here. The Constitution won't allow it. You say this so confidently, secure in your race and class. But ask an older Japanese about when FDR ignored our Constitution and rounded them up into concentration camps for the horrible crime of their race. It can't happen here. Our courts won't allow it. Ask a Cherokee about the courts when they walked the Trail of Tears. Crystal Night can't ever happen here. Ask a black in Tulsa what happened in 1921 when their neighborhoods burned to ash. Don't tell me it can't happen here, because it already has. That's it.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I'll just point out that we all loved it, so it wasn't just Bob that bought that poem. We have to have at least a consensus.
Oh, and Cliff, I wanted to explain something to you. Part of the reason, I know that grammatically you wanted me to put in Japanese people and black people.
Don't worry about it.
Well, no, I wanted to explain what I was doing. I was doing it on purpose because it what kind of went into the theme of the dehumanizing that happened in.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So it's not that you were wrong, because actually grammatically you were correct, but in a poem you could do anything.
No, editorial input is just that. It's editorial input. I accept about a third. So not a problem. I loved the poem. I will say one of the things, and this is true for all the authors, that the system we use of Microsoft Word track changes I mentioned this yesterday on the podcast, doesn't really provide space for what I would do if I were a critique partner or a critique leader, which is to say all the things I loved and how much I loved it. So we say that by giving you money. And, and so every edit just looks like a complaint, like a whole litany of complaints, or in your case, just a couple. You think of those as like, you counterbalance that in your mind with the fact that we love the piece because we bought it.
Oh, thank
Now,
because it's true.
Something that I tell people about Stephanie. Stephanie was the first person to review our first book.
I wasn't in that one, just for the record. I wasn't in Alternative Truths.
And she only gave us 4 stars.
Well, that's because she wasn't in that one. She just told you that, Bob.
But I think you've appeared in a couple of 3 of our books since then. I'll speak to something that Stephanie has a wonderful series of stories she's written 2 of for us called Letters from a Women's Prison. In the Trump era, if he had the choice, he would put any woman whose brain was connected to her vocal cords in prison. And she's written 2 wonderful stories along those lines, and we've enjoyed them. Now,
Thank you.
I hate to just say nice things and leave, but we have Robert Walton. Now, Robert, I understand, is this your first sale?
I had a story published by you 6 or 7 years ago, one of the earlier volumes, and so this will be my second one with you.
Well, I tell you, just a second here while I move everybody around. My mouse's inability to turn into a finger and just stay a hand is annoying. So, Robert, tell us about your story.
It's set in a future I hope doesn't take place, in about a year or 2 after Ukraine has lost the war, and it's in a gulag somewhere in Russia, and the main character is why don't you think of him as every man who's decent.
So this is set in a POW camp?
Yeah, not even it doesn't rise to the status of POW. It's just a camp.
Yeah, I think we're going to find out what camps are like in this country pretty damn quick. So tell you what, why don't you read this, give us a good 5-minute sampling of your story.
Oh, okay, sure. Let me see if I can get it in. It's pretty short. Suka Blayat, it's cold. I looked at Ivar, at his knobby lump of a head, at his lips lying beneath his broken nose like twin dead slugs, at his eyes glistening beneath his granite ledge of a brow, eyes so small I never knew their color. There was no pleasure looking at him, so I looked away. Why do you say this? Because the wind cuts like a rusty blade. No. Why do you say Suka Blayat? What is this Suka Blayat? Just a curse, a Kiev curse, for when you have to look up to see hell. What does it mean? Ivar's brow lowered, extinguishing his eyes. It's the worst curse of all. The worst? He chuckled like a diesel engine starting on a frozen morning. It blasphemes lovers, sisters, mothers, grandmothers even. Oh, I recoiled in mock horror. Even grandmothers. Saints, preserve me. Ivar shrugged. It should be reserved for the worst of the worst. I say it about the wind, but I don't really mean it. You don't mean it, so why say it? Because I mean something else. His curled index finger motioned me closer. I leaned close, almost close enough to smell his breath. What? Slava Ukraini. I started back. That will get you killed if the guards find out. Ah, if they find out. He grinned his nearly toothless grin. Besides, curses become a habit. The morning wind, this camp, they're not so bad. My grandfather told me of the true gulag, Stalin's gulag. 1 in 20 lived. My grandfather was the one. Ah, old men's stories. Stalin's gulag couldn't be worse than this. Peter, Ivar touched my wrist. Do we have soup? Ah, the soup is snot. But we have the snot. I did not reply. Do we have bread? The bread crawls with weevils. But we have the weevils. Munch them, savor the snot. You live, man, you live. This Putin camp is paradise. We could be in America, in a tender care center. Ha! I poked him with an elbow. Oh, at Mar-a-Lago, maybe? Suka bless. Ivar's lips twisted into a knot of disdain. And break bread with Putin's pig? He spat. Never. I grant you. I looked beyond the wire at a horizon bleak with looming snow. The pig turned America against us. He didn't. Ivar gripped my arm hard. He took away the tanks, the missiles, and the money. But most Americans are still with us. A troop of guards carrying Kalashnikovs approached the gate. 2 dragged a man between them. The camp commandant followed behind. 6 guards peeled off, 3 to either side, and leveled their weapons. 2 more slung their rifles and opened the gate. The prisoner's feet made twin furrows in the mud as he was pulled into the compound and dropped on his belly. 300 men in the compound stood motionless. Who is it? I whispered. It's Yuri. How can you tell? His face is gone. It will heal, believe me. The guards turned and paced back through the gate. Ivar stepped forward then. He went to Yuri, knelt, rolled him gently onto his back, and cradled his head. The camp commandant stared at Ivar. He was a short, slender man, like a banker or a pimp, a man whose work is to make others work. Drop him. Ivar didn't move. Drop him. Ivar stroked Yuri's blood-matted hair. Outside the wire, we are yours. Inside the wire, we may care for each other as we can. It is the law of the camps, the unwritten law. I am the law. Ivar didn't reply, but continued to cradle Yuri's head in his battered hands. You are the one called Ivar. I am. You learned nothing from your time in Osvostal, beneath the steel mill. Ivar said nothing. The commandant nodded to the guards. Bring him. 2 guards handed their weapons to men standing beside them. 4 more aimed vaguely at the motionless prisoners. All 6 entered the compound. The 2 gripped Ivar. Ivar glanced at me. Peter. I nodded. Then he carefully laid Yuri's head on the mud and rose on his own. When the gate shut behind him, we were forgotten. A dozen others followed me to help Yuri. They took Ivar to a cement shed at the edge of camp called the Goat Pen, where they ask questions that require no answers. We listened to his screams until they ceased. A line of 30 guards formed in front of the wire the next morning. 2 more came behind them, dragging a man through this new snow. The man's hands trailed beside him, palms up, flopping lifelessly. They reached the gate and dropped him. We stared at the corpse. We stared at Ivar. The camp commandant, chin lifted, eyes bright, paced forward, stopped in front of Ivar and smiled at us. It was a challenge. Slava Ukraini. It may have drifted on a forest breeze from pine needles nearby, or sparked from sunlight glinting off barbs on the wire. Perhaps I whispered, Slava Ukraini. Dirty, battered heads, at first only a few, raised. Eyes, long cast down, sought other eyes, flickering together like moths swarming. Slava Ukraini, we prayed. Slava Ukraini. Raw throats opened wide then, and we roared, Slava Ukraini, Slava Ukraini. The commandant raised his right hand. The guards' Kalashnikovs rose with it. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you.
That's it.
Wow.
That story is, you couldn't read that story in submissions without realizing there's a story that belonged in the book. It's going to be here. And
I'm really honored to have it included.
That was a really terrific reading, I just want to say.
You did good. Thank you. And I'm not trying to just rush you. Now, where do you live?
A little agricultural town in Monterey County, California.
In California?
King City. Yep, King City.
You know, that story reads like somebody from New Jersey. Oh.
Yeah, I've never really been to New Jersey, although I remember my first experience, or my first knowledge of it, came through Latta dog stories, Albert Payson Terhune.
So Robert,
when I was a kid.
Robert, you're from Steinbeck country.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he spent boyhood about 5 miles east of my house.
He'd be proud of you.
Hey,
Pardon?
and hey, Andrew.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to steal your slot pretty quick here. Okay. So, do you have anything you want to say before you go?
Yeah. Thanks for including my pieces in the book, and it's a pleasure and an honor as always to be in a BQ Press publication.
And it's an honor to have you. There was no arguments getting you in the book.
Okay, so, you guys have a good night. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Now, the reason I had to do that is I've got Elizabeth Ann Scarborough in the waiting room, but I'm going to have to make her wait for just a little bit. And I'm sorry, Annie. I mean, I'm really sorry. But I have Lauren here. Now, Lauren, you still living down in Panama?
I am still living here in Panama, yes.
You made me laugh the first time we had you on the show.
Yeah?
Trump had not yet announced his intention to take back the canal. And you were sitting there saying, yeah, down here in Panama, I don't think he's going to have any impact on my life.
The only way is if he does something militarily stupid like that, and yes, I have thought about this, is that he may turn some of the folks who think we're okay among the locals against us, which would kind of suck.
Yeah. Yeah, we got an interesting world
Not
there.
fair to those of us who are trying to fit in and not be that kind of gringo.
So tell us about your writing world.
Well, my writing world, my fiction writing world is a bit newer. I've been working short stories for the last couple, 3 years. I've certainly been a consumer of science fiction and fantasy for most of the decades I've been on the planet. I was a songwriter and performer for about 20 years, and COVID and being in Florida kind of shut a lot of that down. And I no longer miss that because that was burning me out. I'm learning what I can, and I'm learning as rapidly as I can, and doing what I can to just like try to be worthy of being in places like this one right here with the awesome people I get to share a book with, some of whom I have been reading their stuff for decades.
I know we all kind of feel that way. Now, forgive me while I move you guys around a little bit. There we go. So, Lauren, read to us about Montezuma's rescue.
Okay. I'm starting a little bit into the story because first few paragraphs we can leave off, and the next part is, I think, significant. All I really need to tell you is that the story begins in a small town bar in central Costa Rica. The main character is Norman, a U.S. expat who's been there for about 8 years, working on and managing an eco farm. The time is roughly 2027. His brother Rob, whom he hasn't seen since leaving the U.S., walks into the bar and wants to talk with him. Rob had the good sense to drop his eyes. You were right about it all. He paused. His beer showed up, glistening with the sweat of a cold object in a warm and humid climate. He ignored it. They took Mom. They what? Norman had expected a lot of what had happened in the U.S. since the re-election of Trump, the mass roundups, the relocation camps, the states of emergency in each place, but Mom was one of their biggest supporters. What happened? She was at the store. Everything's been so expensive because of the tariffs. She got upset with a clerk at the supermarket because they were out of eggs. Word must have gotten back to the Peace Force, and they came to the house late that night and took her. Norman frowned. He tried to pay as little attention as possible to the increasingly depressing news coming out of the U.S., such as it was. Much of what he had heard had doubtless been sanitized, of course, to make the new government look good and everyone else look like the enemy. Most of his news came from foreign sources, and a lot of that was obviously incomplete. What he heard was bad enough. Conditions in the camps were worse even than during the original test run, as he called it, back in 2018 or so. People disappeared and went in. They almost never came back out. Any information on what went on there besides what the whitewashed U.S. news reported was fragmentary and smuggled out. Even though he had left home for Costa Rica on the heels of one incandescent argument with Mom, never to return, this was a lot to absorb. He picked up his beer and took a long swig, as much to give himself time to think as anything else. Norman, Rob's voice was strained. Aren't you going to say anything? What do you want me to say? I'm not thrilled that this happened to her, but I knew that sooner or later that Perro Loco and his crazy henchmen would turn on their own. They can only round up so many so-called illegals before needing to start on their enemies within in order to keep the numbers up. Keep feeding those camps. The camps are private. They get paid by the head. But aren't you going to do something? Norman sighed. Rob, I haven't been back since 2019. I don't even have a driver's license there anymore, and I only got my passport renewed a couple of years back so that the government here wouldn't kick me out for not having one. I'm one guy who left for a reason, and there isn't one whole heck of a lot I could do if I wanted to. I'm a farmer, not a freedom fighter. Norman fudged that last a bit. He'd gone out of his way to hire refugees heading south from the U.S., people who'd been deported or left ahead of the roundups. A couple of them had made homes for themselves here in Naranjo. It might not have been much, but it was what he could do for those displaced by gringo idiocy. God damn it, Norm, Rob's face was flushed. This is Mom. I don't care what problem you had with her. She's still our mother. How can you just sit there? If you can tell me just one goddamn thing I can do that won't simply land me in a cage next to her, I'll listen. But I don't think there is. Rob snorted in disgust and stormed out of the bar. Norman thought about calling after him and then thought better of it. Perhaps he'd stay in town long enough that they could talk again and maybe work through their disagreement. But he truly didn't know what else to suggest. Spoiler, he does wind up with a plan. And to those of you who are out there just in internet land, buy the anthology and you can find out what it is and how it turns out.
Well, thank you. I have to say that was a wonderful thing. Now you notice there might be you see a new face down here.
Hi, Anne.
Hi. Great beginning for your story.
Thank you. It immediately follows yours, which was awesome. And
okay. So we're switching
just
it.
Entirely amazed to have my name next to yours in a table of contents. What can I say?
I don't know.
Lauren's story more than delivers on its promise. He absolutely sticks the landing on that.
I like things that have kind of, if
before
not
I
happy
get
endings, at least a resolution,
Before I get too deep in with you guys on Elizabeth and Scarborough, and Robert, did you have anything you wanted to say before I have to replace your square?
Oh.
If any of you have a chance, check out my book on Amazon, Joaquin's Gold. It's Steinbeck country book.
Now join up on the BQ project page and post it there so everybody can see it. That's where a few of our BQ writers show up to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Robert. It was good.
Hell of a story.
Powerful story. I mean, the second I saw it, I just knew it. And you did a great job reading it. Thank you so much. Now, I'm going to bring on, to keep the thing balanced, because we got three guys. I need to have three women, even if one of them has blue hair.
Sorry.
Especially if one of them has blue hair.
I don't say, yeah. And, but now the readers will have had a chance to meet almost all of the editors. We have Lou Berger, who is one of the, an incredible editor. He's got a great skill at it, but he is serving sushi tonight. And frankly, I'd rather be there because God knows I love good sushi. But Deborah is the editor of Alternative Apocalypse with a co-editor of Alternative Apocalypse, co-editor on
Alternative War.
Alternative War, and a co-editor on
After
post-row alternatives. You might recall. Oh my God, I'm guiltier than all of you guys. I thought I had my camera, my video mirrored. And there.
There you are.
Now you can read it. Post-row alternatives fighting back. And we had so many great editors, we didn't put them all on the front. But it was a great book that Karen was part of, Lou was part of, Phil was part of, and you were part of, Deborah. So, but now that I've told everybody what a wonderful human being Deborah is, and you got to better be nice to Deborah. If you ever want to see a copy of the book, she is
What lovely blue hair you have, Deborah.
She is the keeper of the book mailing. She and by the way, those that didn't know, you may have noticed that it went live today. And so authors' copies are going out. And
as soon as people reply to me that they want them and how many they want.
Yeah. Now,
I'm not sure I got that email yet.
He hasn't said it yet.
Now, Lauren.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're getting into my 5 o'clock hour, and I have to say adios. So, did you have anything to say before you?
Just thank you again for having me in this anthology. Those of you out there, please, buy as many copies as you can get away with buying, because I would love to see them put out the call for a volume 2, and I've already got a story that would go well in it.
Well, maybe we can convince Elon Musk to buy a copy a copy each for all of his kids.
Yeah, really, that would be
right.
something. He has 12, I think.
Hey, and so take care, and I'm going to punch a button here if I can find the button. There's so many buttons. There we go. And now I'm bringing on. Hi, Chuck.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh,
and now that we've had you on, you've been in a number of our books. We're going to ignore you while we go over and talk to Annie Scarborough. Annie, do you remember how many books you've published?
About 40 altogether.
Do what?
It's about 40 altogether.
About 40.
One of which, one Nebula.
I like the ability to say about,
Well, I wrote 16 with Anne McCaffrey, but I count them because I actually wrote most of them, and 22 by myself. So that were solo before and after and during the time I met Anne.
Yeah, that is tough. I mean, she had me at the spaceship that sang.
Oh, me too. That's my favorite. And that's her favorite too. She wrote that one for her dad.
It's there. Now, I have to do something to keep Wales happy.
Wales.
Yeah. We
the
region in a world where anthologies are not limited by who you know or who's subscribing to what newspaper. This book has got people from countries across the world. India, I got one guy was telling me about looking out over the Alps, Italy, in the Italy there. We have a person wrote a story for us from Texas, and it's all good. And one of our favorite writers, I've always wanted to see her when I went to London because she's such a talented writer, is Paula Hammond. Well, she took that away from us now by moving to Wales.
Oh, that Wales. I thought you meant
That
orchids.
Wales.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, no, actually, we have a large collection on the. It's the sperm whale, the blue whale. You know, we got the narwhal. We're gonna publish that collection later. But
That
right
will be
now,
alternative whales.
yeah, I won't say anything really mean to Karen at this point, other than I wanted to read this one, but it's such a well-written story.
Such a great story.
It begs to be read. It's written to be read aloud. So, with no further ado, Karen, would you read Paula Hammond's incredible story?
Tell people the title.
Huh?
I'll do it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. This by Paula Hammond is called The Big Fat Double Take. Don't get me wrong. I get nothing but respect for the Almighty, but as he don't seem to be in the smiting business no more, then it's up to folk like me to do the state-mandated duty. Think of us as God light. No prayers necessary, penance optional. This hit came by the usual way of things, an execution order, a name. I may finesse the details, choose a time, a place, but I never make it complicated. Any dark, lonely spot is good. Doesn't do to scare the populace. They'd freak if they knew just how many enemies of the state are out there. I didn't know what this suit's crime was, whether they were a preacher, a grifter, some other type of bastard. I didn't much care. Scaring will mess you up. Before you know it, you'll start wondering about the morality of it all. That happens, you might as well take a gun to your own head, and that's the gospel. No, it wasn't my conscience that stopped me doing what I was there to do. What stopped me was that he was a she. Young, too. She didn't look much like a girl at first, but once she got past the buzz cut and the sharp suit, she had this whole Sinead O'Connor vibe. Huge eyes, vulnerable. A lot of guys in my line like to keep it clean. Death from a distance. Accidents. Medical emergencies. There's all sorts of ways to get the work like this done without creating a scene. What I signed up for are the real troublemakers. The powers that be want them begging and pissing themselves before they shuffle off. They figure a gun in the face will do it. Let me get it. Truth is, sometimes it does. Sometimes all the mark does is stare me down with cold resignation. This girl, she saw me take out my piece, didn't flinch. Just stood there sucking on a cigarette, blowing bored little smoke rings. We all have a line we won't cross. I don't do women. So as soon as I clocked her, I pocketed my gun and turned to leave. The department could send someone else. It was way up on my quota anyway. Her voice was like a shard of ice thrust down my spine, fairly stripped me of breath. Never picked someone like you as sentimental. Do I know you? I glanced back, curious now. I'm guessing not. At least you don't look much like a whistleblowing prison inspector to me. Not that anyone ever publishes those stories. Still, what is it they say? Silence in the face of evil is evil? A girl's got to try, right? No idea what you're talking about, lady. Mistook you for someone else is all. Geez, I should have figured it. Midnight, car parked by Nick's Diner, look for the one street light still working. That sort of cheesy setup has Department of Liberty written all over it. Anonymous or not, I should have guessed that one of you bozos would catch up with me sooner or later. Watch the attitude, lady. Oh, sentimental and sensitive, all soul, ain't ya? Look, I don't know what your game is. Same as yours, life and death. Poverty, backstreet abortions, lynching, extrajudicial executions. It's my damn job to tell the world about it. We've got a crime syndicate masquerading as a government here. Only apparently, some folks don't care as long as they don't have to put up with a Mexican in front of them in the queue for the soup kitchen. Screw it. I pulled out the gun. Don't push me, lady. I can make you go away with a twitch of my finger. In fact, it's my duty to do it. I'll stop there and let you figure out what happened.
Oh my goodness.
Karen, that is a wonderful reading of a wonderful story.
Well, I hope Paula will forgive me because I couldn't hear her voice, but I could sure hear her character's voice. So I just
loud and clear.
It is. So now, Karen, anything you want to say before we let you go?
No, I'm heading off to my weightlifting class. It's been delightful being here. It's been delightful being here with you guys. I love it that we're doing this. And I want to bring you guys some good news. As I was driving home to come to this, there are people at the intersections in Seattle facing the traffic coming home tonight, holding up signs that say, "Deport Trump." So don't give up, people. The resistance is strong, and I'll see you later.
Well, and I think he's going to feed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Karen. You have been the heart and soul of this book, and I appreciate it. And that's how I treat hearts and souls.
Well, then I'm safe. That's why I haven't been evicted.
Now, I just brought in another gentleman that some of you may know, Tom Easton.
Hello.
Hello, Tom. Now, here is we are coming down to the tail end. And on my schedule, I have Tom reading last. I don't see Tara Schreiber showing up, which is sad because she wrote a great book, great story for us. And so,
buy the book, you can read it.
Huh?
Buy the book, you can read it.
Buy the book, you can read it. And since I'm going to be releasing the audio later on today.
Ooh, good.
Well, it's not everybody can read. I got a blind sister that fundamentally, if I don't get it on an audiobook, she can't enjoy the stuff because her husband is a born-again Trumper. And he would rather eat the paint off a house and read our stuff aloud to her. But she's got a lot of grandkids, and speaking of grandkids, that leads me down to Deborah. Deborah had written a story that I think will be wonderful to read. So, Deborah, are you ready?
I am ready. So
Tara is here. That is cool.
Oh, good.
And there we said all that nice stuff about her, gonna swell her ego. I tell you, the person who took away my ability to turn my mouse into a finger from a hand. Okay, go for it, ma'am.
Okay, this is actually, it's an essay, and this is actually true. It's called To My Granddaughter About to Be Born. Ara, at the date of this writing, November 19th, 2024, you are 1 day away from being born. I don't know what your life will be like when you read this. I want to share what mine has been. When I was little, everyone dreaded summer because that's when mostly children would get polio. Even if the child survived, the effects could be anything from paralysis to the child being sentenced to an iron lung. doomed to live lying in a cylinder which did the job of the now ineffective lungs. Pregnant people who caught rubella delivered babies who were deaf or blind or mentally compromised, and sometimes all three. The children were most often sent away to a residential school or an institution. Pregnancy for unmarried girls or women was unthinkable. In the eyes of society, reputations were often spoiled for life. Keeping the baby was scandalous, and mother and child would be spurned. There were, however, few options. Even if the pregnancy was the result of rape or incest, the condition was considered shameful and the woman shunned. Back alley abortions were illegal, dangerous, and often deadly. The girl might be sent away to visit relatives, actually sent to an establishment for wayward girls, kept there until she delivered, the baby whisked away to a fate unknown to the girl. When talking about my high school classmate who was convicted of trying to burn down a church, people said, well, what else can you expect? He was that kind. I had no idea what they meant until I went to college and had some gay male classmates. I didn't know women could be gay until I was in graduate school. A married woman was referred to by her husband's name. When she married Henry Smith, Mary Jones became Mrs. Henry Smith. Except for her close friends and relatives, her personal name was erased. Children carried the surname of their father. A woman needed a man's approval to buy property, and for the most part, houses carried only the man's name on the deed. A woman had no credit history because everything was carried in her husband's name. As a result, women could not get credit cards. A woman was expected to dress up when going out of the house, even if it was just to the grocery store. And then things changed. My brother was one of the first to get a polio vaccine, and summer lost its terror. By 2024, there was only one person left in an iron lung, and she just used it at night. Rubella babies in the United States were almost unknown, only 10 cases in 2023, because of the widespread vaccination of both women of childbearing age and children who had often spread the virus to pregnant people. A pregnancy no longer had to be carried to term. Abortion was safe and available. Unpartnered women could keep their children without stigma. Same-sex relationships went from the forbidden to the mundane. Mr. and Mr. became commonplace. Women kept their own names after marriage. Sometimes both partners would hyphenate the names or combine them into something unique. The surname of the children was determined by the couple, sometimes hyphenated, sometimes original, sometimes from one of the parents. Women owned property independent of their married state. Their credit history was their own, and nobody cared what a woman wore to the grocery. The idea of sexual equality seemed within reach, and now it's all under threat. Ara, you may inherit a world where children die or are maimed needlessly by preventable diseases, where women's rights are slipping away, where life is controlled in ways I can't even imagine. Rights and freedoms have to be fought for. I thought we'd won that battle. I'd hoped to give you better.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Now, so you know, we kicked Cliff off while you were gone and brought in Tara. Hi, Tara. Now, let me look at my schedule. Of course, you guys know what I think of schedules. Oh, come on. We got this book out on schedule.
We did. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but yes.
Well, yeah, but I didn't mind. I mean, it was your blood, sweat, and tears. I just sat
I
back.
know.
I got to sit back and wax poetic. But that said, I believe that Deborah, you're fairly well acquainted with our next reader.
I have met him, yes.
Well, do you want to say anything about him before we turn the microphone over to him?
C.G.
We're not
Roberts is
talking
my
about
husband.
you, Tom.
Yeah, he's my husband, and I'm all for him reading his story.
All righty. Well, then let me see if I can get my mouse to play nice. Oh, it did. There he goes. Okay. Now, hold on. Start over.
In real time, the man at the dais was behind bulletproof glass. He was bracketed by the parentheses of teleprompters. The network was committed to carrying every spoken word. This was the debut of the new AI banner system, and they hoped that the chyrons scrolling across the screen would result in a more accurate performance. The crawling text below the man's image was not what they bargained for. AI. He says projected cost is $8 billion. 8 days ago, he said $4 billion. Best independent estimate above $40 billion. The man on the dais went on. This may be an anecdote towards some rhetorical point, possibly just a digression. Still, maybe a digression. Still, maybe a digression. An anecdote with no apparent relevance. And on. His point seems to be that windmills are like immigrants. They both kill birds, but the immigrants killed endangered bald eagles and eat them. No supporting information exists. And on. The fish poisoning allegation is false, traced to a Russian misinformation site 33 days ago, and it has been viewed 83,043 times so far. A popular lie. And on. That survey does not exist. And on. Vengeance is mine means the opposite of what he says it does. Reference King James Version, Romans 12:19. And on. An aide has come up on the stage and is apparently telling him something. And on. He criticizes Instafact Incorporated for these chyrons. However, this stream is produced by Checkflow, not Instafact. And on. He scolds NBC for allowing AI technology to piggyback. And on. He compares this tech to the fictional Skynet in the Terminator films. And on. Praise for Arnold Schwarzenegger, including his personal physical attributes. 4 minutes. And on. He says AI should not be allowed on broadcasts or podcasts. He supports his opinion with 4 expletives. In conclusion, the AI says, the most significant quote from the 93-minute address is, artificial intelligence should not do real-time fact-checking because it violates freedom of speech. And that's it.
Thank you. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, now, hey Annie, how you doing?
I'm okay. I don't see me on the screen anymore.
You don't see yourself on the screen?
There I am. Hi, me.
Oh, here, just a second. Let me make it more confusing. Peekaboo.
Hello.
Okay,
I'll stop. I was moving your picture around.
You've been doing this too long, Bob.
Hey, yeah. Life's too short not to. If you can't have fun with Elizabeth Ann Scarborough, then who can you have fun with?
Well, there is that.
I mean, it is such an honor to have you here, ma'am. And
oh, thank you. I'm very honored to be here.
And you know, I got to believe that Tara is going to have, you know, she's going to be getting free drinks for this for the next 20 years that she was in a book with Elizabeth Ann Scarborough. Because we're all honored. And but you read the story, The Death of the God King. And
the God Emperor. The God Emperor.
Oh, I'm sorry. The God.
He's the God Emperor of the universe.
Oh, God Emperor. You are correct.
Yes.
There's no God King here. There's a God Emperor.
We don't want you to get thrown in the gulag for.
I'll bet you if we give him 2 months, he'll either be hanging by his heels or he'll be considering himself the God Emperor.
I don't know. The first thing I heard today about Trump was that his Bitcoin had crashed the economy. I think that may be alternative news, but that was the first thing I heard about him today.
Oh, all of his Bitcoin stuff and that fake Newsmax or his fake Truth Social, all
Yeah.
those were very thinly veiled bribery schemes to pump
Yes,
money
yeah.
into a
Well,
failed
then
business.
Melania came out with her coin and kind of upstaged him. So,
Well, hey, you
They
know,
worked. They worked.
I have opinions on Melania too, but I'm going to respect the world and keep them quiet. Now, you got a story to read?
I gotta find it, Bob. I only had the copy that's on my Word document, so I'm gonna have to kind of switch screens here a little bit.
Well, here, I'll tell you what. Why don't we do this? Why don't you go give you a moment to look for that?
Okay.
And then we can let Tom. Do you have your stuff ready?
I've got it here, Bob.
Oh, you're ready? Sorry,
Yeah,
Tom.
yeah.
You're outranked.
Okay.
Hey, at least I keep my hero worship honest.
There's too many people to hero worship around here.
Oh,
Okay,
don't worry. You're up.
I'm gonna read the scene that that Lou Berger suggested that I put in because it didn't have a middle, so now it does. This is basically a podcast, and the two podcasters talking to each other. And so everything's a bit remote. Let's see. Our team here at the Innocent Bystander podcast obtained the audio from an earlier broadcast by Surf News' Phil Phillips. Folks, dawn is breaking over the Yellowstone Absaroka Industrial Park, site of a portion of a former national park. Visibility here this morning is great now that what were once mountain peaks have been flattened. The former mountaintops have all been used to fill the local valleys, which used to hold nothing but wildflowers and a few bison or antelope. Once the mining is completed, the land will become useful for real estate development or commercial use. That white object there in the middle of the project is actually a lake that provides the mining efforts with water and acts as a holding tank for runoff. It's a promising operation, and the God Emperor himself is coming today to view the project and consult with the engineers. In fact, I hear his chopper now. There it is, folks, shiny and golden in the sun, matching the golden throne toilet that always accompanies his Imperial Highness. It's landed, and the crew have then loaded the iconic and ingenious Golden Throne porta potty so that the GEOTU can be perfectly comfortable, even out here in this wilderness, overseeing the progress of this project. Plumes of smoke rise up from the volcanic caldera's fissures, and geysers and geysers. Yeah. And the geysers, volcanic fissures, as if to greet the illustrious guest. Pause and commercial break, because we got to have those. And here he is in all his glory, wearing the golden Carhartts that are, we understand, his usual attire for working events like these, although he has not yet donned his golden hard hat, but is sporting the Maharaja style, heavily jeweled turban, a gift from the ambassador of India. He's walking up to the microphone now. Let's listen. He's saying, "Gentlemen, wait, what's this? Something is streaking through the sky from the tourist area. A drone, maybe, although it's too fast to see. The Emperor's guards are closing in to shield him, but that thing is beaming what seems to be a laser of some sort. And, oh my God, the guards are too late. The Emperor, the turban, and his golden throne have all disappeared, incinerated or vaporized. It's hard to tell. in that ball of flame. What the actual F? The feed switched back to Bert, who continued. Thus far, no group has taken responsibility for deploying what is now described as a dragon that, as you have heard in previous report, unalived the God Emperor of the universe earlier this morning, though many have admitted that they'd like to claim the credit. Investigations are ongoing. So, how are they ongoing? Ernie, the co-host, I kept that, Bob, of the Innocent Bystander podcast, asked, who's been questioned? I understand that the wilderness area contains one of the largest state-run convent brothel institutions in the West, nicknamed Our Lady of Perpetual Conception. Have they allowed investigators to speak to any of the women sequestered there? It is no secret that many of them have been unhappy about the edict demanding that all women not currently mothers must remain under state supervision while they fulfill their maternal destiny. Has anyone suggested that in between diaper changes, one of them might have slipped back past the electronic sensors to hijack equipment that their men might have? Maybe someone has a dragon simulation with a flamethrower. Bert dismissed the question, saying, from what I've heard, caring for the children and providing services to the incipient fathers keep those girls too busy to bother themselves with subversion. Ernie pressed further, yeah, maybe. Does that work?
Okay. It's it if you want it to be.
Well, I've got more story. It's a very short story, but anyhow,
I want them to buy the book.
Yeah, I do too. So, but there is a lady in it. So in person. So I didn't leave it all up to the men.
Oh well, you could. We'll take care of it. Don't worry.
I know. Don't bother your pretty little head about it, darling.
Bob, we're going to talk.
Hey, I'm just going to say this. On our most successful books, our co-editor has been women.
Yeah.
And I appreciate them every danged one for the work they do. Because it's been hard. Now, let's see here. Tom, how about, and I'm sorry, Tara, but your story is so damned beautiful. I can't think of anything better to close us out on than such a brilliantly written, beautiful story that crushed my soul when I got done reading it. Have I left anything out there, Deborah? Okay. Oh, here, hold on. Yeah, no, it's your story is beautiful. Now, Tom, on the other hand, has written about genealogy. So, Tom, I will unmute you. I have sometimes when there's a little bit of background noise, I mute to figure out who it is. Now, Tom's been with us a while. We actually published a collection of his essays, and he's helped in the editing before us. And Tom, you had a career out there that's pretty cool. Now, if you turn on your microphone, they'll hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My microphone is on then.
Then tell us about, because you've got a career that needs to be heard a little bit about it to help.
Well, I spent many years as a college science professor, writing textbooks, teaching. Well, a lot of it amounted to science, technology, and society. Genealogy was something of a hobby. And when people started talking about ending birthright citizenship, I started thinking. And I found that there was a case back in 1898 when a gentleman went back to China to visit family, and they didn't want to let him back in because though he was born in the States, he was not of native parents. They kept him offshore in a boat for several months before finally the Supreme Court let him in. But one of the arguments raised in that court case was that if birthright citizenship was destroyed, then it could reach back to the point where no one was properly documented. And it occurred to me that if it takes this particular route, genealogists could be very much in demand as political operatives.
Ew.
Now, you wanted us to cut things down to 600 words, and that's about half the story. But I did that, and today's news made the story feel very apt. One of the first things Trump wants to do is to end birthright citizenship. At the same time, he has sworn to uphold the Constitution. And since that's the 14th Amendment, he's already forsworn. He should be impeached tomorrow.
Did you know that he did not put his hand on the Bible when he took the oath?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You don't have to. It is possible for an atheist to swear without being by God.
But he's such a good Christian.
Well, you don't have to be a Christian to be president.
Most Christians claim to be Christians.
Yeah.
You could, in theory, put your hand on the Koran or on a dictionary.
Yeah. I think he had one finger up.
Somebody just asked, was it a Trump Bible? And apparently one Bible was the one his mother gave him once upon a time, and the other one was the Lincoln Bible that has been used a number of times before.
Oh. He's missed a bet then.
At any rate, should I start? Should I start reading?
Yes.
Go for it.
Okay. My elevator pitch for the Venture Capital Speed Fest was short and sweet. Posthumous documentation for politicians' ancestors. That was enough for Victor Argelis to say, he's mine. Stand up from the table of venture capitalists, grab my elbow, and pull me into a breakout room. I can see it, he said. He was a tall, middle-aged fellow in an expensive suit, an oversized flag lapel pin, and a plain blue tie. His hairline was almost out of sight. My sister married a Mormon, so I know about their posthumous baptism scam. Just now tell me more. I'm a genealogist, I said. It was just a hobby until the conservative war on anchor babies picked up steam during the second Trump presidency. When Trump decided he was going to kill birthright citizenship. The next step was when Kentucky declared that the children of illegal Haitian immigrants were not U.S. citizens and could be deported. The case immediately went to the U.S. Supreme Court, which promptly reversed itself on United States versus Wong Kim Ark, 169 U.S. 649, 1898, and declared that the born in the USA children of undocumented immigrants could not be birthright citizens despite the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. The American Civil Liberties Union recycled the pro-Wang arguments that a decision against birthright citizenship would imperil the state of white European immigrants and their descendants. They also pointed out that the case was inherently racist, but to no avail. The second step came when the 2030 GOP platform said that only the descendants of documented immigrants should be United States citizens. A one bad apple clause even said that all one's immigrant ancestors had to be documented. A platform isn't law, of course, but it can lead to law. How did you come up with this idea? Asked Victor Argelis. Texas, I said. Travis Crockett declared for governor, and his Democratic opponent, Adam Burton, claimed he couldn't run because he wasn't a citizen according to his own platform. His Irish great-great-grandmother wasn't documented. Well, what about Burton? He said he was covered. As a descendant of slaves, his ancestors were documented on bills of lading. His great-grandmother was a Native American, but they aren't immigrants. Argelis laughed. Crockett loved that, and he called me. He wanted me to find some undocumented branch on Burton's tree. Weaponized genealogy. How far could it go? If your great-grandfather was a horse thief, you have criminal genes and must be deported. Searching family trees for Jews, mixed marriages, anything people want to hate, worse than the Jim Crow racism. Yeah, it astonished me. I shook my head. This was all my idea, and it could make a lot of money. Yet I really wasn't sure I liked it. I never dreamed a genealogist could be a political operative. Argelis did not ask whether I'd found what Crockett wanted. And then you made the Mormon hop. I nodded. I filed for the patent immediately. And what's the income stream look like? Politicians to start with, there's what? 3,000 state and federal, another 500,000 local. I've been charging them $500 for each ancestor I have to document and a lot more for Oppo research. You don't need venture capital for that. Ordinary people are going to need it to prove citizenship and vote. So that's another 300 million customers. So in a rush, if that GOP platform turns into law, Argelis opened his tablet and began to type. I could see that he was working in a spreadsheet and a browser, checking my figures. After a few minutes, he added, "How much do you need?" And that's 600 words worth of the story.
Well, Tom, that is excellent. Now,
it's insidious is what it is.
It is, I'm looking forward to reading it. Now, I hate to do this till you cut you off so quick, but Tara has been very patient. And I am sure that she has been mentally ignoring your legal argument since she has recovered from being a lawyer. So that said, Tara, you get to close us out.
Okay, great. Thank you. So my story is called Seen and Not Heard. Are you hearing me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're getting to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Should I go?
You're on.
Okay. So Seen and Not Heard is the name of the story, and I'll just start at the beginning. Grace's voice was birdsong and gentle wind chimes, warm sun and lapping waves. These sweet melodies chilled her mother. The bubbling musicality of Grace's voice was dangerous. The expression of bright and shiny thoughts bouncing around in her sparkling brain was especially dangerous. Even during infancy, Grace's mother fretted about her incessant babbling. Grace would smile, setting forth a legion of drooling vowels. She crawled early, explored enthusiastically, and laughed easily. This would not do. Her mother tried to fill the silence that would be expected by society, never making a sound unless given permission from her husband. Her mother tried to shush Grace, plugging up her little pink mouth with pacifiers, teethers, and bottles. Grace simply spat out whatever got in the way of her joyful noises and pursued her spittle-soaked vocal exercises with increased vigor. Naturally, Grace's father disapproved. It was bad enough to have 2 daughters. He was sorely disappointed in his wife's poor reproductive results. Still, he understood the responsibility that came when the Lord gave a man daughters, and he was committed to teaching them their role in society. By the time Grace was a toddler, her mother resorted to extreme measures, locking Grace for long stretches in her small, austere room to keep her loud vocalization from enraging her father and corrupting her older sister. Grace chatted out and sang at her doll for hours on end, alone but for this simple toy. She also spoke to the birds outside the tiny window, the lumpy pillow on the simple bed, and the single lamp that illuminated the bleak room. Grace did not mind that no one spoke back to her. She had enough to say that there was never a lull in her monologue. Thank heavens Faith was older and less susceptible to influence. Faith obediently maintained silence throughout the day, even during playtime. Faith would mime necessary conversation, her lips tight as rubber gaskets, her dress neatly pressed with nary a stain or rumple. Faith was never moved to speak out of turn, even when Grace pestered her. Faith also tried to instill society's values in Grace, imploring her with pleading eyes to just keep her mouth shut. Grace only worked harder to try and converse with her sister, cracking jokes, singing hymns from church, or just jabbering away at whatever was on her busy little mind. Grace's mother often muttered that she did not know what she would have done if Grace had been born first, because then there would have been 2 noisy girls to train. A girl's behavior is, after all, a reflection of her mother, and her mother made it clear that Grace was not a positive reflection. Grace's mother prayed with her nightly, sitting on the edge of her bed in the room she shared with Faith. Dear Lord, her mother said, night after night, holding tightly to Grace's hand, please help Grace to know her role. Please show her to be modest and gentle. Please curb her impulsive expression. We all know that if Grace cannot quiet herself, she will be quieted. Her mother shuddered. As is your will, Lord. Amen. By the age of 10, Grace understood society's expectations. She kept her mouth closed around her elders. She knew she was permitted to speak only with her father's permission. One day, her husband would have that authority. She worked hard to follow society's rules. Still, she sometimes found herself absent-mindedly singing. Improvised songs flew out of her lips like flowers blooming on a vine. The vibration of her voice filled her with warmth and light. The deep breaths fulfilling her lungs soothed her nerves. The clear tone of her voice filled her with pride, and she sometimes was carried away by her own confidence in her pitches and rhythms. She hummed while washing the dishes one evening, forgetting herself in the scrubbing of pots and greasy suds flowing down the sink. A firm hand landed on Grace's shoulder with such a sharp grip. She turned to see her mother, eyebrows pinched, lips turned down. Grace nodded and continued silently dishwashing, focusing instead on the rhythm of scrubbing and rinsing, keeping the melodies inside her mind. At the age of 13, Grace's growing body and developing mind erupted. She had questions, observations, ideas. While taking out the trash, Grace noticed a blank envelope in the bin. An epiphany exploded in her mind, and she tried her best to hide the bright light of her thought, closing her face to probing from others while she surreptitiously snagged the envelope from the trash and stuffed it deep in the pocket of her long, modest dress. She tried to muffle the joy of that treasure, reminding herself to plod along rather than float excitedly throughout her day. And that's it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Now, guys, I think if I read my time correctly, we have got 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, or 25 seconds left. So I'll take any closing thoughts because you've heard me all day. Deborah. Anything? Oops. Maybe if I unmute you. Yeah. Okay. What about you, Chuck?
Trump just pardoned all of the January 6th people. All 16.
All of them, even the murderers?
Yep. Yep.
Well, what did you expect from him?
Biden pardoned the whole January 6th committee, though, including Liz Cheney.
Yeah. Biden just did the 2 who led it. He didn't do the other one. But yeah, even the ones, the Proud Boys, the whole bit. We need to get out a second volume.
Well,
my thought exactly.
Very bluntly, I also understood he reinstated all the military people who refused the COVID vaccine.
I hadn't seen that one. I believe
I
it.
hadn't
I
seen,
just haven't seen it.
but it strikes me as he is building a loyal strike force that he can use in any city of America to go in and terrorize the city, and the police and the military will have nothing they can do about it because the little fascist brown shirts will be operating under an executive order that gives them immunity, and he'll pardon them if they do anything wrong. Or did I leave something
Speaking as
out?
Bob, speaking as a nurse, if those vaccine haters stay in the military, we're not going to have to worry about them. There's other epidemics coming along.
Well, you could spell that karma, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Vaccines do work. I know. I was alive during the polio epidemic. So.
People have forgotten.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is that a lot of the vaccine deniers actually had the vaccines when they were children. So they aren't the ones who are going to die. I had a friend who went to the school for the blind in my hometown, and that's where I met children who were rubella babies.
Well, guys, it's going to be a rough 4 years. It's going to be a really rough 6 months as this person pushes to see just how far he can go before he loses the support. And those people who think they're safe and on his side, if he ever loses their support, then they'll find just how safe they were. And
Keep your doors locked. We could be targets.
I suggest we send every Republican right now a copy of Night of the Long Knives.
I think actually it's better to keep your tail feathers down. I mean, we're doing enough to do the books, but I think waving your flag in their face is probably not well advised.
No.
You mean we should? You're right. Well, anyway, guys, thank you for being here. And to those people still watching out there, thank you guys for being there. And I'm going to